Наливаймо, браття, Христові чаші, Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Green Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 462 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine here on the final day of this week of the war. Tomorrow we'll be wiping the map clean and beginning with brand new markers for a brand new day of a brand new week of the war in Ukraine, which will be day 463. But before we get into that day, the Russian Federation is falling into what appears to be unadulterated chaos at this point, as even propaganda circles are starting to show the strain and stresses that the Russian Federation is under, considering that the drone attack just occurred on Moscow. Regardless of who conducted it, it appears to have caused mass pandemonium inside of Russia, and not only that, they are still under drone attack today, losing a major refinery in the area of Krasnodar due to a large attack. Not only that, but we see that the Russian army is showing the strain as well, as they have been routed once again, and due to them being taken out by the 3rd Brigade, or surrendering to the 3rd Brigade at large. And so moving right on into this news, and starting off with the very beginning of the story, and I'd also like to apologize to everyone, just in case this is a bit of a precaution, and let me go check our OBS.
There was a little bit of lag just then.
There was a little bit of lag, and I would like to let y'all know as a precaution tonight, it appears that we're dealing with an excessively high amount of lag tonight due to some kind of a connectivity issue. From what we can tell, it's not really affecting our internet. Once again, it's more so affecting our connection with OBS to YouTube, and so it may be the chance that it is some kind of an attack on the stream. Of course, not really sure about that, but there has been a large amount of them so far, around 3 DDoS attacks. So if that does happen, please bear with us and stick through the DDoS attack. We will most likely be right back after the DDoS attack ends. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the area of Moscow, where we saw that another drone attack occurred today. It appears that another drone landed somewhere in the vicinity, striking the Balashivka area of Moscow, and we can see the plume of smoke rising after the drone attack right here on film.
До этого прям жестко бомбануло. Вот только сейчас дым идет.
See the smoke rising out there in the distance?
Вот это.
And it appears to be a smoke of a pure white kind, maybe showing that ammunition has been hit.
Нет, и за 15 лет тут никакого завода вообще не было, дыму неоткуда взяться. Так что я на 99% уверен, что это беспилотник.
We see the Russian continuing to elaborate about what that may be, and that's the end of that clip. And once again, it appears that while the majority of Russian drone attacks, from what we understand, happened yesterday, it appears that one was caught on film occurring again today. And this appears to be putting massive strain on the Russian government. To lay down the demographics and why it's very important that these drone attacks are occurring on Moscow rather than anywhere else, Moscow isn't just the governmental capital of the Russian Federation, it is also the cultural and population capital of the Russian Federation as well. The Russian Federation has a population of around 110 million people, and out of all of those, 11 million of them live within the city of Moscow. That means that 1 in every 10 Russians live within this city. And so attacking Moscow is probably the most direct and easiest way to make an entire 1 out of every 10 Russian citizens feel directly attacked, regardless of who's launching these attacks. And we can see that the public pandemonium in Russia is starting to take off, especially within Moscow, after the drone attacks of yesterday and the additional drone attack we saw today. And it appears that even Russian propaganda circles are starting to have visible meltdowns on air. And so, without further ado, here is the one clip that we had today, which is about as good of an example. And this is talking about the Eurasian Union. And I've got to be honest with y'all, I've never really heard specifically of a Eurasian Union alliance. There is the CSTO, there is BRICS, there is also, I believe, one other alliance or group that the Russians are a part of, but I've never heard about the Eurasian Union, to be completely honest with y'all. But anyways, we will read off the translation and let y'all hear the meltdown that's happening on TV today. I'll tell you a simple thing. Don't report back. Look, is the Eurasian Union helping us in the war now? Yes, it is. Tell me about it. It's helping. Tell me how it's obviously helping. It's not explicitly helping, but it's helping. As long as we have agriculture, it means it helps. Leonid, do you realize that people are now turning on the TV and watching? The capital of our motherland was attacked. The military worked well. The air defense system worked well. So what? Should I say we are ready or not ready for this? I have another thing to say. We understand that NATO will be at war with us us now on the other side in all seriousness. It will. NATO is at war in all seriousness. Didn't you hear that yesterday? I said that yesterday. I've been saying it for 9 years. Maybe you didn't hear it from us 25 years ago. No, 25 years ago, I saw how you collapsed the country. Or maybe you didn't see us pushing the communists out of Crimea in 2010 when NATO was conducting exercises there. I wasn't standing next to you. Not next to us. I stood and watched what you were doing. And where are you standing in 2010? I was standing here, and I was talking about what happened. About how you gave the country away. How do you look at those bases out? Don't talk about the country. Like your Yeltsin, like your Gorbachev. Not yours? Not communists? What do you want to ask me now? So tell me, what should be done now? And that's the
most civil conversation in Russia.
The most civil conversation. Now, really quickly, I know I was reading over the translation, so y'all may have not been able to hear them all too well. Let me go back and I'm just going to play 10 seconds of it without me reading over it and just listen to the absolute hellhole that is Russian propaganda.
Там проводила учения, может быть, ты рядом с нами стоял? Или
я стоял не рядом с вами.
Не рядом с нами.
Я стоял и смотрел на то, что вы
делали. Где вы стояли в 2010 году?
I mean, like, usually, these kinds of things right here are usually brushed aside by us, and it is always considered to be state propaganda, and the other side is usually controlled opposition. The thing is here, though, is that with how quickly they're talking over each other, and of course, we could just sign this off to amazing production value, but we know that the Russians are not really ones for well-refined production value when it actually comes down to it. This seems to be quite sincere in between these two sides, and it seems as though the attack on Moscow, considering that these guys, from what we assume, actually lived within the well-off area, like the Gorky area that was attacked the other day, this may be them actually freaking out. Who really knows? I would honestly have to say it may be them freaking out, but of course we'll let y'all decide. I'm sure there's going to be a question about that here in the future that y'all will all be able to answer, but it is getting very wild in the Russian propaganda circle, and it certainly deserves to be wild because really the only thing the Russians have left at this point is oil. Oil is the largest, I guess you could say, market in the Russian economy, and it's the largest export that they have as well. Really their only moneymaker. And in the areas of Krasnodar and around really the entire border region of Ukraine, we've seen oil refineries being attacked since the war began, and now it is Krasnodar's turn. And Krasnodar appears to have maybe had one of the worst attacks on an oil refinery in the war so far as the damage looks. And so here's our first clip of the results from a drone attack on the oil refinery. This is in the Krasnodar territory, but we put the markers near Krasnodar city, so it could be anywhere within the Krasnodar Oblast. We just put it down in Krasnodar. But you can see the massive fireball coming from the oil refinery after it's been hit, and we can now see it turning into a roaring inferno as it begins to eat on the oil supplies within that refinery. And we can see that here on security camera as well. And we can see the blaze becoming brighter and brighter as it continues to burn more and more oil and reach other parts of the refinery. This kind of stuff freaks out the Russians, not just attacking their well-off neighborhoods, but attacking their only source of income as a nation also leads to a very large public freakout in Russia, because if the oil's not making money, then what really is making the money in Russia anymore? And the answer would be nothing, because they don't really make anything else. But we can see the inferno burning in multiple camera angles right here, and it appears that these may have been taken through multiple parts of the night, and it doesn't appear that the blaze is being brought under control anytime soon over the course of the several hours that these videos were taken from. Moving on to our next video clip as well, we got another view, this time a little bit of a longer one, of the refinery on fire again at a single angle. This one was apparently taken by a car that was driving on a road near the refinery, and we get a much more up-close view of the damage that was caused by the attack. We can see as they're driving by, it appears that the drone, if we were to take a... Well, thank you, truck! Thanks! We can see that it appears to have hit near... And of course, I have to be honest with y'all here. I am not a oil worker, and I do not work at an oil refinery, so I don't know the exact names.
You don't say.
Yeah, I don't know the exact names of the systems involved in a refinery, just letting y'all know. But I believe these are condensers, the large towers here, and it appears that it may have hit near one of the condensers and set the oil on fire that was at the base of that condenser, and that fire appears to be spreading throughout the rest of the structure in the area, and maybe making its way to other condensers and other parts of the facility. Of course, that's a lot to take from just 50 seconds of footage, but this is what it looks like. Now, if we have any oil workers, please tell me what the towers are, because I believe they're condensers, but I don't really know what they specifically are. But the fire is raging quite prolifically.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oh, the gas station that gets their gas literally from their oil refinery a block over is looking outside and going, oi, 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 our gas prices are going to be going up soon, boy. So we're not going to be making any money anymore. But that was a solid hit, and the damage that's going to be caused to that refinery is going to be pretty severe, at least contained within the area of that fire. And so everyone's telling me now that it is not a condenser, it's a distillation tower. So there we have it. It is not a condensing tower, it's a distillation tower. So still, it looks like it hit near one of those, and that's what's caused the fire. And the fire, of course, is incredibly large, and it appears that it's being fed a supply of oil from somewhere, as the fire is not dying off. It's continuing to stay at the same intensity, which tells us that it's being fueled by more oil that's being pumped into the area. They're most likely going to try and contain this fire by cutting off the flow of oil into that area of the facility, and then most likely letting the fire burn out. We have seen over the course of the war that Russian fire brigades are woefully inept in putting out oil fires, and so their best bet is to just let the fire burn on out and to try and contain the damage as best as possible. Anything beyond that will practically be impossible for a Russian fire brigade. And so the damage, of course, is significant, and we can expect that this oil refinery may be out of action until that fire dies, or it may be out of action well after the fire dies if it did hit a critical part of the oil refinery systems. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from those little interesting clips, because while the Russians are having a freak out, the Ukrainians are hard at work behind the scenes to make sure that the additional Ukrainian forces that they have been raising up out of conscription and also contract volunteers will be ready to go for the offensive when it does happen. According to a senator who recently visited the recently visited Ukraine, not the United States, that's where he's from, he claimed that the offensive was only a few days away. Of course, the senator is not a member of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, nor a representative of the Ukrainian government, and so the claim could be nothing more than puffery. It could also be true. We're not entirely sure. Regardless, we can see the Ukrainians in the background still preparing additional forces to build up their own with, and here we can see a small clip of some Ukrainian infantry training near a field, and it appears they also had a simulated explosion occur in front of them during their training. And so here's the clip. We can see the explosion right there. We can see the guys jump. And I gotta say, that's very good training, especially for these guys, because we have seen shell fire landing incredibly close to Ukrainian forces on the front, and so getting them ready for that kind of shock is certainly important. Moving on into our next clip, we also saw them training Ukrainian soldiers in another very important and very relevant part of combat so far in the eastern front of Ukraine, which is trench clearing. Trench clearing has proven to be one of the most dangerous and deadly forms of warfare over the course of this war so far. And here we can see them pulling forward a BTR-4, dismounting the infantry, and going through what we could pretty much call, based off of video evidence we've seen over the entirety of the war, a textbook trench clearing. And so here's the clip. We can see the BTR-4 rolling down the street, moving quite quickly. And we can see what may be the instructor on top of the BTR. We can now see it veering off the road a little bit, now deploying a smoke screen. And believe it or not, this is a very interesting thing about Soviet-era vehicles, or even modernized Soviet-era vehicles, and even some Western vehicles, is that instead of it using smoke grenades, which a lot of modern Western vehicles use, for example, the Abrams and the Bradley both have smoke grenade dischargers, some tanks actually have a smoke discharger built into the engine itself, which can take advantage of the engine's exhaust to propel the smoke outwards and near the vehicle, of course giving the crew and also the infantry that may be dismounting from these vehicles a small amount of concealment. And we can see them deploying that smoke screen right there as the BTR-4 now rounds the corner. We can see the infantry hopping out of the vehicle. And once again, this appears to be a completely textbook, I guess you could say, trench clearing. Much like we see on the front lines, we see that the APC has delivered them within literal feet of the trench. We've seen this multiple times on film, especially by the 3rd Brigade in action on the southern flank of Bakhmut, and so it does appear that this is now a part of Ukrainian fighting doctrine as far as trench clearing goes. We can see a Ukrainian instructor following them and giving them tips and advice on how to move through and clear out these trenches as the rest of the squad continues to press forward from that BTR. We can also see them covering key positions behind the trench and above it, of course giving them a little bit of oversight and making sure that a Russian can't pop out and try and run behind the Ukrainians that are inside the trench. So you now see them firing around corners, something else that we've seen heavily in trench battles throughout the war. And we can see that they're working in groups of 2. Once again, another very common aspect of trench clearing that we've seen in frontline practice. We can also see them throwing simulated grenades as well, and continuing to clear the trench corners, and it appears that these guys have got a really good handle on what trench fighting looks like so far. Also, did you notice that at the end, man? Did you notice that? The Ukrainian instructor, to give him a little bit of an idea of fear in the trench, he took his AK and he fired a blank out of it right behind this guy, and it pissed him off so badly, he turned around and fired a blank at the instructor right here. Watch. He's like, hey, screw you, man. He shot at his toes. But with that...
just a little horseplay, that's all.
No, just a little horseplay. This guy, man, was in the zone, and his ears are bleeding now. He's like, hey, screw you, man, and fired back at him. But anyways, that's the end of the clip, and it's great to see that they are giving them the vital tools that they'll need to make sure to keep themselves safe and alive while they make sure to take care of the Russians and make sure that it's the opposite case for them. And of course, like I said before, trench clearing has become one of the most important parts of the war. And considering that the Russians and the Ukrainians, as far as weaponry on the field goes, are largely on par, although the Ukrainians are definitely getting more superior tech, they have a little bit less of it. They are on par right now, and so this is very important training for them, considering that trenches are truly dominating every single part of the front line at this point. There is not a part of the Ukrainian battlefield where it's just an open plain with absolutely no trench works whatsoever, so this training is going to come in vital to these Ukrainian infantrymen, and also the APC that brought them in. We're now going to be moving on from this little training clip in western Ukraine and on into Kiev itself. We saw a very interesting clip, this most likely came from yesterday, but the video was published today, of a Russian cruise missile making its way into Kiev. This one, oddly enough, was not shot down. It in fact made it all the way into the city and almost hit a parking lot where key government officials park their vehicles to go to work each and every day. Luckily for them, the Russian missile fell short and landed in the Dnieper River instead of in the parking lot, and that was actually caught on film by a security camera right here. We can see them looking into the river. We can see the barbed wire fence that separates the government officials' parking lot from the river, so that way no Russians can just crawl up and into the parking lot. And here comes...
I'm telling you.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Oh, we're back, I think. All right, so, anyways, getting over the lag, in recapping this again, just in case you all didn't hear it, the missile landed in the river instead of the parking lot. Very good to see. Government officials probably will be able to drive their cars home, and no one got injured or killed, hopefully, which is also a very good thing. And once again, Russian missiles are showing that they're poo-poo each and every day, and nothing will ever change that. We're now going to be moving on from Kiev. As we can see, once again, while the Russians are having a meltdown, apparently their computer systems inside of their missiles are also having a meltdown and are appearing to become less and less accurate as the war keeps going. We're now going to be moving on into our location on... Well, actually, we're not going to be moving into our location unknowns yet because there's something else I'd like to show y'all on Izium. You see, a video was taken very recently, and as many of y'all may know, the Russian Air Force has a very difficult time of operating.
Also, by the way, just real quick, everyone's asking if you can play that vid again. They didn't get to see it.
They didn't get to see any of it?
None of it, apparently.
Oh, man. Okay, we'll play it again. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't know the lag was that bad. So we'll replay this again. So here's the government parking lot. Here's the Dnieper River, and we can see the Russian missile fly straight into the river and explode, missing the parking lot, which is its actual target. So, to recap the whole video, very lucky for these folks, because if that missile had landed in the parking lot, the injured and killed may have actually registered as a number. From what we understand, it did not register as a number due to the missile falling inside of the river instead. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip, and we're now going to be moving into the area of Izium. As many of you all know, the Russian Air Force has not been able to operate to a high effectiveness or to a high volume at all over the course of this war due to Ukrainian surface-to-air missile defense systems, even since the onset of the war in Ukraine, being of a pretty good quality and a very good, well-trained crew operating all of the systems, making sure that the Russian Air Force really can't operate without taking significant losses. However, every once in a while, the Russians do attempt to try and send an aircraft in, and they hope that by the end of the sortie, it will be coming back alive. Cue the Su-30MS, or the SM. This is one of Russia's more modern versions of the Su-27 type aircraft. While it is called an Su-30, the fuselage is largely based off of an Su-27, and to increase the maneuverability, or more so super maneuverability, of this variant of the Su-27, it had canards placed on the fronter end of the fuselage near the air intakes, which does allow an extra amount of maneuverability at slower speeds, and also a little bit more stability, I believe, in its airfoil, if I'm correct, based off of what I remember reading years ago about the Su-30. This thing is one of Russia's leading fighter jets as far as their aircraft arsenal goes in practical use. This may as well be considered their best frontline fighter that they have, and it's also considered a multi-role as well, but I do have to give the disclaimer that what the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation qualify as a multi-role aircraft would not qualify as a multi-role aircraft here in the Western world or for the United States. Here in America, this thing would most likely only be qualified as an air superiority fighter, considering that the amount of ordnance, air-to-ground ordnance that it can carry is not in the, I guess you could say over 10 tons nearly. And I'm just, of course, exaggerating that. I believe this thing can only carry about 3,000 pounds of bombs at best. And that's even stretching it for this aircraft. Nonetheless, this is one of Russia's best, and it appears that the Russians did send one of these into Ukraine today, and it appears to have actually made it pretty far. I don't know what the plan was behind this Su-30's mission, but it made it all the way to Izium before it ran headlong into most likely an S-300 and S-400 missile, and it appears to have shot it down completely, and we got to see the remains of this Su-30 as a charred piece of wreckage right outside of the city of Izium. Right there is what appears to be maybe the vertical stabilizer, or the rudder as you call it. We can also see a jet engine that appears to have Looney Tuned itself into like a horseshoe shape. And we can also see the remains of the rest of the Su-30 right here.
I'm kind of surprised that all of it didn't disintegrate like that front part right there.
Yeah, I mean, like, that is gone, and it's amazing to see that even the vertical stabilizer and other parts of it survived. And this Su-30SM right here was specifically the one numbered RF81773. Now, we take a look at this one. Let's see if we can get the number on this one. Let's see here. It's got a number 24 on it, but there's a more advanced number on it somewhere else, a more identifying number. So let me go back. And let's see if we can find a picture of an Su-30 and see if we can find the specific one that was shot down. Because I have a feeling that they probably do have a picture of it publicly out there somewhere. But it's not going to be on Wikipedia. So let me go back to Google Images and we'll go click... Nope, not there. We want to go to Google Images. And we'll try and find a picture of an Su-30 up close and personal here. And so this one is what appears to be real Su-30. It almost looks computer generated, honestly. And sadly, it doesn't look like we can get close enough to confirm the number that is on the aircraft. So I'm going to give up here instead of going for a deep dive trying to find a picture of this specific Su-30, because all you need to know is that all Su-30 SMs look the same. They all look like this one, and we've seen one that has been blasted into pieces in the Izium area. And I'm supposing, based off of our live viewership spiking by several hundred, we must be going through more lag. And it appears we're actually not. It appears that people just joined the stream in the hundreds. So anyways, then, we're now going to be moving on from that Su-30SM that was just blown away in the Izium area. And very interesting to see, because I have to note this again for everyone. It made it somewhere in the Izium area. So we're assuming somewhere down from Kunje towards Izium, somewhere in that area. And it flew that far into Ukrainian airspace. The Russian front line is just only a few miles away from Kupiansk. It could have flown in from there, but still, for one to make it that far, because the Russians usually don't risk their aircraft like that, That is very rare, actually, and it's very bizarre to see that one made it that far and, of course, obviously was shot down. But I wonder what kind of mission it had for it to be flying that deep behind the lines inside of Ukraine. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from Izium and on into the area of our location unknowns. But many of y'all have posed amazing answers to some questions that we've had for y'all tonight, and I want to make sure that we go over those because a lot of y'all have been weighing in on this. So with that, what do we have, Matthew?
All right, and jumping right into our mini polls that we have, the very first one says, the U.S. says it supports a Ukraine peace summit, even if Russia isn't involved in it, and what are your thoughts? 38% said that's good, it's a noble proposal, 9% said unsure, 26% said, what do they mean by that, and 27% said it's pointless if Russia isn't involved. And for me, I'd have to be with the 27%. I think a peace summit needs to involve both of the parties that are actually at war with each other. What good is it to have a peace summit if one of the parties isn't there? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It really shouldn't be called a peace summit if that's the case. It should be called like the pressure summit to put pressure on Russia to go ahead and concede. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I would have to answer that by asking, would the Treaty of Versailles be the Treaty of Versailles if the Germans weren't present to sign the surrender?
It'd be kind of tough to come to an agreement, though.
It would be pretty tough to have a peace agreement when one of the warring parties isn't even present. So I would have to be honest. I would have to agree with the 27% of y'all. In my opinion, of course, there's no clear answer to this. That's, of course, why it's a poll. Every answer is about equally right. But in my opinion, I think there really isn't a point to having a peace conference if one of the warring parties in this conflict isn't even present at the peace agreement or the peace meeting. So I would say it doesn't really make that much sense to have one if the Russians won't even physically be present. So with that, I hope that does address that one fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second poll says, after drones attack Moscow, the U.S. stated it doesn't support Ukrainian attacks on Russian soil, and what are your thoughts? 66% said the U.S. is covering its ass, 14% said it's meaningless and it's a different context, 11% said it's an indirect admission by the U.S., and 8% said unsure. And I will say that the U.S. has said this statement multiple times now, and they have tried to cover their ass in the past. However, the timing of this one is a little suspicious. I will say it happened right after the drone attack on Moscow. I personally think it was still partisans or some kind of Russian people that decided to attack on their own volition. But, you know, maybe this has some kind of correlation. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, what was that phrase you said? Something about, like...
Cover their ass?
No, it was something else. It rhymed. And I forgot what it was, but it was hilarious to hear. I would have to say, though, in my opinion, the U.S. is most likely just trying to cover its rear end, and so that way the Russians can't come and say that they were responsible for that, just in case if it was a Ukrainian attack. But one thing we also know is that the United States gets a lot of information from the Ukrainians, and usually the Ukrainians confide in the United States as to what their further actions or future actions should be. So we most likely have the answer, at least within intergovernment circles here within the United States, whether that was a Ukrainian-based attack on Moscow or whether it wasn't a Ukrainian-based attack. So we may just be putting out that statement to maybe throw the Russians off a little bit, or maybe make them think something that may or may not be true. Because that's something always very important to note, and I think that everyone should be reminded of that. The reason why Thug Shaker Central was such a big deal is because Thug Shaker Central actually did put out originally unaltered classified documents onto the internet, and we know from those classified documents the Ukrainians do usually talk to the United States, U.S. military commanders, and even the president and the presidential cabinet a good deal on what their plans should be going forward and what the U.S. would advise and would not advise. So going off of that, we would have a pretty good idea, just to lay out the groundwork, that they probably were also advised what the Ukrainians would possibly be doing or possibly be supporting Russia itself. Although that would more so not be a military issue, that would most likely be a CIA issue. Oh, wait a minute, hang on, we're going through serious lag right now. Oh,
are we back?
God, what's going on? What is happening? Oh my God, we're flatlining like no tomorrow. You know what? Put an LSA in the chat.
Don't worry, though. We'll have new internet before long.
Put an LSA in the chat.
Are we back? Can you hear me?
I think I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. We'll have new internet probably in about a week, hopefully. They're laying some cable around.
Yeah, they're out there. They're not laying pipe. They're laying cable. Oddly enough. So we should have internet here soon. And also, I love to see all the LSAs in the chat. Good to know that everyone's happy the internet is back at least for 5 seconds. And it looks like it's back for now. So really quickly, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And once again, I would like y'all to keep in mind, we may end up having a large amount of lag throughout the course of the night. It just appears to be one of those nights where we're going to be going through a lot of lag attacks, it appears. But hopefully that will be fixed soon, probably within the next few days, because we will be getting new internet. Anyways, it's not really like it's a secret or anything. We have been doxxed after all. But yeah, that's kind of the story. So with that, once again, I do want to apologize to everyone because while we can't really control the connectivity or the, I guess you could say, the quality of our internet connection at the moment, that actually should be changing here within the next week or two, maybe. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And I think we're on to the next one.
All right, and our last poll says an alleged Russian spy whale enters Swedish waters and authorities are on high alert. And what are your thoughts? 48% said, what the hell is a spy whale? 25% said not good, spy whales are dangerous. 6% said unsure, and 21% said I'm not bothered, it's completely lame. And I have to admit, I'm a little unclear what the hell a spy whale even is. I'm assuming they strap a camera onto the whale and send it out, but how do you train a whale to go where you want to go? That's beyond my pay grade. But Enforcer, tell us more about this, kind of a joke of a story.
So, everyone, I'm going to introduce you to Halvdir, or however you pronounce this. It is a beluga whale. This thing is a beluga whale. This thing is a Russian spy. No, actually, I think this is actually the Norwegian. One second. In northern, noticed wearing a camera harness. Okay, so this is actually the same whale. It's just back again. So, if y'all don't know, back in the day, it was mostly in the 60s and 70s, a lot of guys were on coke benders, even in the Department of Defense here in the United States and the Ministry of Defense inside of the Russian, in the Soviet Union at that time. And through these coke benders that these people were having, everyone asked the same question pretty much at the same time. Hey, you know, whales are pretty smart animals. What if we trained them to do things for the military? And so trained military whales became a thing. Interestingly enough, the U.S. actually has trained military whales as well. We actually use dolphins. But the Russians ended up using the beluga whale, at least from what we know. They also may use different kinds of whales, but of course that information is kind of kept a close state secret by the Russians, so we don't exactly know what kind of whales they use. We just know specifically about this one whale, because this one was spotted in 2019. It's a beluga whale, and it had a large harness attached to it, kind of like a dog harness, but this dog harness had a massive camera mounted onto the back of his body. And from what we assume, this whale has been trained to travel to ports in the Norwegian area, and when it surfaces, this camera kind of pops above the waterline for a little. We'll keep on weathering it out and keep on covering the news tonight if y'all can hear us right now. And moving back to the whale,
is that the whale that's causing the problem, that exact whale right there?
From what I understand, it is that exact whale, because they have pictures of this thing circling all around as a beluga, and so I'm assuming it is the same beluga, and it is once again showing up in Norway, and they're telling people to give this thing a wide berth and to stay away from it. It of course,
I wonder what they're paying them.
Man, they're paying this thing a krilling. They're paying this thing a krilling, man.
But why would the whale want to go out and do this?
I guess just because it wants to. I mean, I don't really know. Look, it actually talks about his current life. Norwegian agencies governing Halvdir's future have repeatedly issued conflicting statements about its welfare, at times claiming he had become a wild whale. But as of January 2023, Valdemir is still living full-time at fish farms off the coast of Norway and interacting with workers, fishermen, and tourists. No agency within the Norwegian government has provided any protection or animal welfare care for Valdemir. In May of 2023, Valdemir was located near Hornbostrand in southwestern Sweden, having traveled along the Scandinavian coastline at a faster speed than normal. That's because he's a Special Forces whale. While the reasons for this aren't entirely clear, marine biologist Sebastian Strand speculated that the whale may be seeking the company of others of his species, either as companionship or to find a mate. And so we can now see that Vladimir is no longer a Russian agent. He's actually a bachelor now and an agent of his own. That honestly deserved a David Attenborough voice for that right there, but I just missed that opportunity. So actually, it appears that this is not the whale. Another beluga whale's popped up, because this one appears to have been set free, I'm supposing, because they're saying they actually know where it is and where it's traveling. So, very interesting to hear. But once again, they're giving the new whale, which I'll be showing y'all right here. Wait, hang on.
Oh, that's the new one.
Wait, this is Vladimir.
Oh, he came back. Oh, he got fired and then he was rehired.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he's just back on the beat or something like that. This story
Let's
is...
had hard times.
Let's see. He has been wearing a harness labeled Equipment St. Petersburg, which led many people to believe, although it's not really confirmed by anything, that he had been trained by the Russian Navy for intelligence purposes. Oh, come on. If it says Equipment St. Petersburg, I have a feeling that that would be a fairly good indicator that this whale is from St. Petersburg. But anyways, that's what the spy whale is. And honestly, considering that the Nords have known about him for a good while, and he kind of just traveled around from Norway to Sweden on his own, and he hasn't really had any communications with the Russians for a while, and everything else, I would honestly say it's not really that much of a concern. It just appears to be making the rounds because it's a bizarre story to hear that a wild animal is doing military, well, maybe doing military surveillance. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I guess, and hopefully, did you see what I did there, Matthew? Fairly whale.
Oh, man.
I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed that fairly well.
All right. And we are all out of polls with that being said. So we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a generous $140 donation from Red Cover Rick. And thank you very much for that support. He says Crimea is fed and downstream of nuclear plant. If they destroy it, Ukraine wins. And I'm glad you finally got the gift. I was worried.
And thank you.
Oh, this is that Rick.
That is that Rick. And I got to thank you so much, Red Cover Rick, for the red covers. They are very nice, I have to admit. And I thank you so much for that. That was a very kind gift of you. And we will be considering your suggestion, because it's actually a really good suggestion, a really great one, and I would be behind that. So that may actually be happening here in the future. And I would say that Crimea is fed down and downstream of a nuclear plant, which is most likely ZMPP, which we have been talking about a lot over the course of this war. However, I don't think it would be within Ukraine's benefit to destroy this nuclear power plant, because I don't think they would win necessarily. That would probably be considered nuclear war by the Russians if the Ukrainians actually did go out of their way and deliberately destroy the plant, sending it into a meltdown that would probably not be recoverable. And I'd also like to make a quick note that as far as nuclear disasters have gone in nuclear power plants, some of them have come very close to unpredictable results. As many of y'all may know, at Chernobyl, a radioactive mass that was known as the elephant's foot started to sink through the plant itself. It ended up settling in the basement, but also almost ended up boring a hole through the basement floor as well. And from what people assumed at the time, that thing would have just continued to bore through the Earth's surface until it made it to the Earth's core. You know, that's just kind of what people say, but who knows what will really happen as a result of that.
I think it's still kind of going, even today.
I don't think so, because people have actually said that it's not even radioactive anymore.
That's not what I heard. I thought they were still having a problem controlling it burning through the floor.
Elephant's foot. Let's go take a look at this thing. Let's make sure we're correct on our information here. Here's the picture of this dumbass that literally just stood on it. He's dead by now, probably, most likely. Why in the world would you go up to a molten radioactive mass and stand on it? I have no idea. And you can even see the distortion in the camera when they tried to take a picture of him. You can actually see that he went from standing to kind of kneeling over towards something. Anyways, moving on from that, that's, I think, the only picture of the elephant's foot that exists, and that was taken in 1996, which was 10 years after the Chernobyl disaster. And we can even see that it still had a large amount of radioactive distortion in the camera lens there. And someone actually said, he's alive! No way. I call cap. If he's still alive.
He can't be.
Actually, he is alive, I believe, if I remember story correctly. Yeah, he's actually alive, believe it or not. But let's see here. Is located in a maintenance corridor near the remains of Reactor 4. It is still an extremely radioactive object, though the danger has decreased over time due to decay of its radioactive components. And let's see here. Oh my god! Again! Wow. This is amazing, Matthew. Wow. Wow. I think we're returning to normal now. I don't know what is up with that.
We're back.
We're back, baby. But let's see. Elephant's foot, composed of these things. The mass was quite dense and unyielding to a drill mounted on a remote-controlled trolley, but able to be damaged by armor-piercing rounds fired from an AK-47. That's good to know. I wonder who conducted that test. They must have been a very bright and smart individual with a promising future ahead of them. By June 1998, the outer layers had started turning to dust, and the mass had started to crack. In 2021, the mass was described as having a consistency similar to sand. So someone actually went down there and messed with it again, and they found out that it's like sand now. Let's see. There's nothing really talking about this thing sinking through the floor, oddly enough. But anyways, I would say that blowing up a nuclear reactor is not a smart idea, considering that it's not like a nuclear bomb where it blows up and then the radiation subsides over about 2 weeks' time. That thing is constantly emitting radiation, and it'll pretty much cause the entire area to be unlivable, and who knows what kind of consequences that constant outpouring of radiation would have on the world over. So I would have to be honest, I do think for the massive amount of support, I do not think it would be a smart idea for anybody to end up destroying that nuclear reactor, because that could have unforetold consequences for the world, and it could also lead the entire area to become uninhabitable. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Red Cover Rick, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running, sending us massive support, and appreciating this channel enough to do that, and also, once again, sending us those really cool little blanket things. Those were really neat. And I gotta thank you so much once again for everything you've done so far in support of this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat goes to Will Inham, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. And thank you very much, Will, for that support. He says, I heard a rumor that we'll be breaking the 1 million mark this upcoming Sunday, and is it true?
A rumor? Rumor.
Is he trying to make a suggestion?
Is he trying to make a suggestion that's going to have to be the night? And let me do the math again real quick, just to see what night it would be. Because we're not wanting to do what we did on the year's anniversary, where we just like have everyone nuke it, because that one got up to 64,000, and I don't know how much strain that put on all of y'all. So let's see here. Let me go to my notes. Let's see here. Notes. 977,362. So 1 million minus 977,000. Oh, 977,362. So there's only $22,638 left before we reach $1 million. So it may be entirely possible that we may reach $1 million raised by this Sunday. It's not out of the question. Happen. I think it might happen, actually. I don't have a doubt in my mind. It's probably going to happen. So I thank you so much for the support. And I would have to be honest with you. This Sunday is going to be the Sunday. It's going to be the Sunday that we finally pass $1 million raised. It's going to be possible. It's going to be possible because the Lee Spring Army is here. It's nowhere else on the internet. It's nowhere else on YouTube but right here. And the Lee Spring Army has never failed to do amazing things that has blown away the entirety of YouTube. Many people actually sit in disbelief, and they can't believe that this channel has been able, and the Lee Spring Army has been able, to raise that much through fundraisers. Because really no other YouTube channel in the history of YouTube really has used the YouTube Give function that much and to that extent. It actually is something that we've kind of been thinking maybe leading YouTube to remove features that were once around for YouTube Give, because now they're losing money doing the paperwork, although they're probably getting it as a tax write-off as well. But yes, this is going to be the Sunday, and I hope that y'all are all on board with that, where we are going to pass $1 million. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the huge amount of support and appreciating this channel, to find it worthwhile to help us to keep this thing running. And to answer that question, this Sunday is going to be the Sunday. So be here for the Sunday Night Showdown. Anyways, with that, thank you once again for the support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we'll be moving on into our location unknowns.
All right, and the third and final question segment, I was trying to read the live chat, and that never works, so I can't multitask that good. But our last one goes to Augustin Lara, who puts in a $20 super chat, and thank you very much, Augustin, for that support. He says, recently I worked at a convention in Chicago where they had engineers from all around the world, pretty much every country in Europe and Asia. It was about heat pumps to heat homes, and the goal is to stop buying gas from Russia.
Interesting, and I thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us. And that is very interesting to hear that they're trying to create a substitution, I guess you could say, in Europe to make sure that they don't have to get Russian oil again, or really anyone's oil, which would probably be the best for them to try and wean themselves off of reliance of a resource that is kind of hard to find in continental Europe, outside of Russia. So with that, thank you so much for the support and sharing that interesting little tidbit with us, because I didn't know that that was actually an industry motivator over in that part of the world, that they're trying to move away from reliance on Russian oil. And that's really really nice to hear, and a good thing to know as well, considering that pitfall that we saw countries like Germany having at the beginning of the war will not happen again. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And before we move on, I saw one more thing I'd like to address. Let's see. Someone said, do you guys accept Russian rubles? Someone said, do you accept Russian rubles? I don't know if YouTube allows Russian rubles to be accepted on fundraisers or anything. And also, oh, wait a minute, I saw it now, Matthew. Someone said, that is going to be the, I wish you saw it, Matthew. You know the phrase, the move that made LeBron cry? Oh my God, maybe? I just saw what you saw. Yeah, but yeah. You know the phrase, the move that made LeBron cry? You know that meme?
Not really.
So someone actually made a play on that, Matthew. But I'm gonna type it to you and send it to you real quick, quietly. And I don't want to say this out loud, but I wanted to make sure Matthew could read it so y'all can hear his response to it. 1 second. 1 second. So make sure to whip out your phone real quick and read that, because I saw that in the live chat. Oh man. Oh. But it will be. And also, really quickly, I have to say this. We just saw a massive super chat come in. It was $500, and I know that we've just answered 3 questions from this question segment, but considering that is a massive amount of support, I would like to, considering we're actually still in the question segment and haven't moved on yet, we are actually going to be answering that one here real quick. And so with that, read it off, Matthew.
All right, and shout out to Scott Decker. Thank you very much for that support.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Scott Decker. You didn't even throw anything in, but I do want to thank you so much for the massive amount of support. In case y'all don't know, that's actually the cap. YouTube actually caps off how much you can send in a super chat. That is the cap right there. And I got to thank you so much for sending that in, because that is massive support. Honestly, it's very humbling to think that you find this channel to be worth that much or supporting us that massively. And I got to thank you so much once again for helping out this channel and helping us to keep this thing running behind the scenes. Folks like you help us to keep the lights on, or more so to pay rent. That's honestly what it really is. It's paying rent, not keeping lights on. But you help us to keep the lights on. You help us to be able to eat. You help us to be able to get gas for our cars, to be able to make sure to pay for the insurance on them, to do all kinds of things like that. You help us to be full-grown adults doing a full-time job like this right here. And I got to thank you so much for the massive amount of support, because that is unbelievable. And you didn't even throw in a comment. So if you would like, that could go to a live chat, or if you have a question later on, I would be more than happy to answer it. But I gotta thank you so much for the massive amount of support. And also, Matthew, if you want to collect Scott Decker's answer to that, whether he has a question or wants a live chat answered, we'll be making sure to address that in the next question segment. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from this question segment. And of course, I have to thank all of y'all so much once again for the massive support to this channel and helping us to keep it running. And to make it clear, just in case we do have new viewers, there are 2 ways that your money goes on this channel, because we want to be as transparent as possible, considering that one of the most important things that we deal with in between y'all and us is y'all's hard-earned money. If y'all want to support this channel and help us to keep running, you do that through a super chat. None of that ends up going to Ukraine. Well, a small amount of it does, actually. About $100 every Sunday goes to it. Sometimes even more than that. So usually whenever a general order is called up, I'll throw in another 20, or I may even throw in just another 100 sometimes for the hell of it, although that is rare. And then, if you want to support Ukraine, you can come to our Sunday fundraisers, where we run a fundraiser through YouTube Give, which means that while we set up the fundraiser and it's run on this channel, YouTube manages the account, so there is absolutely no, I guess I could say, middlemaning on our end as a channel. Your funds go directly to the nonprofit in question, and YouTube insures it. The reason why they do that, because some of you are wondering, why in the hell would YouTube do that? It doesn't really benefit them. They get a tax write-off, from what we understand, for doing that, so it actually does.
Who does?
YouTube, I believe.
I don't think so.
Well, they get some kind of benefit for it. I think in the past that was about the best one we could get. Like the best one we can understand, but once again, I want to say we don't really know if that's true or not. But YouTube gets some kind of benefit out of doing that for some reason, or it makes them look good. It's something like that, good PR, something like that. So that's how we run our fundraisers, because it's vetted, it's trusted. All of the fundraisers that we run are registered 501 nonprofits that YouTube recognizes as legitimate fundraisers, and they also have a track record as well, which makes them incredibly safe, incredibly important. And we also want to make sure that we are as transparent as possible and let you know where your support goes, whether it goes to us or whether it goes to them. We don't like to be like other channels where you just give the person who runs the channel money and you really don't know where that money goes. Some channels out there do run like that, and I think that is a pretty non-transparent, kind of a little bit of a sketchy way to run it, regardless of whether they're running it right or not. I don't think it's good optics. So we make sure to run it this way, two completely separate ways to support. Either you can support us through Super Chat, or you can support Ukraine through a Sunday fundraiser. And I hope that we've been able to make that distinction as clear as possible throughout the entire time this channel runs. We usually try and make that as clear as possible after every single super chat we read off. That's why we say you help this channel to keep on running, help us keep the lights on, and go through that whole spiel each and every time, because while we also want to recognize you and let you know how important your support is, we also want to let every other viewer know where that support is going, which is supporting us. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that question segment and on into the location unknowns. Starting off with our first clip of the Ukrainians taking out a Lancet drone with rifle fire. When you see the Ukrainians firing at the Lancet.
What, they using airsoft now?
Maybe. Click, click, click. Oh my God! He's got a shotgun! They did it!
Sure does.
They did it! Oh my God! I can't believe it! They took me up on my advice! Oh my God! Oh my God! I bet y'all already, if y'all can't remember this, this is a great day. This is a great day. Long ago, like 5 months ago, or 6 months ago even, I was like, man, if only they had a shotgun over there, because I would be able to shoot down drones. And we got a little bit of pushback on that from people. They were like, nah, that wouldn't be able to shoot down a drone. And now this man is whipping out the full 12 gauge. I love it. He fired off a couple of shells at the drone. And he's continuing on. Oh my God. Oh, he got it. Oh my God. And he's going wild. Oh my God, it worked.
Let's hear that stream again.
Oh my God, it works. Oh my God, that's amazing. I told you, man, shotguns would work. And they do. I can't believe that. That is amazing. They need to make this standard issue. Across every Ukrainian unit, they need to have a shotgun in them, because this is the ultimate anti-drone tool. Forget the super advanced, incredibly expensive anti-drone guns that try and force them down by cutting off their signal. This thing cuts off their signal with birdshot straight to the front of that drone, or buckshot. I don't even know what kind of round they were shooting out of that, but it freaking works! Now y'all can see, I was not talking from inexperience right there. I have shot clays a lot, and I can tell you that unbelievably shotguns have range. They can go out to like 100 yards minimum with maybe birdshot and still be effective. I can't believe it though. This is great. I gotta go watch this again a little bit. Because you see, I only watched the first 10 seconds of this clip when he was shooting with the AK. I never saw him whip out a 12 gauge. Oh my god, that is so cool. I love it. I love it. Oh my god, that's amazing. That made my night right there. So with that, we're moving on into the next clip where we saw a Ukrainian soldier carrying around a really cute puppy. And we can also hear like Legend of Zelda music or something playing as we see this cute little puppy in the backpack. And this little thing's going on a joiny. We now see him petting a... What kind of... I gotta be honest... It kind of appears like... It looks like a husky or a coyote. I can't really tell. But he's petting it right there. And also some people were saying, oh, you can't tell the difference between a coyote or a husky? Because I actually... well, a coyote or a wolf earlier, because I actually showed this on the Short War Summary today. Listen, y'all. Wolves aren't that small, actually. Wolves are huge. Like, they are incredibly large, even compared to the larger breeds of dogs. They're huge. Even the Eurasian timber wolves. So seeing this thing, I was like, it's either a husky or it's a coyote. It's just too small to be a wolf.
That's a wolf to me.
We can also see that little puppy right there, and we can see them, it appears that they're cleaning it later on and giving it a little bath. And that's the end of that little clip. But really nice to see them taking care of the pets of Ukraine that have been left behind. And some people are saying this is a wolf dog. I would find that to be a lot more plausible than every other suggestion, even mine so far, that's a coyote. Because someone just pointed out there are no coyotes in Europe. And I believe you are correct. There are no coyotes in Europe. So it is
well, that rules it out.
It is probably some kind of a wolf dog or something like that. Timber or gray wolf is that size. I gotta be. Oh, let's go look. Eurasian.
Someone said it's a gray wolf, youngster.
So this is a Eurasian wolf right here, and this is what I'm saying is that the colors on it, even of the fur, dude, that is just a Doge, man. That is a Doge in disguise right there, like with that face and everything.
It could be very wild Doge.
Someone needs to Dogify that thing, but. It's just not the same like fur color, and it's also not the same size, because if you see this thing standing next to a person, they're actually pretty big. Eurasian wolf size. So let me see if I can find you all a size comparison here of the Eurasian wolf. And Eurasian wolves are actually violent, and the reason why some of the settlers here in the United States ended up killing the timber wolf, although the timber wolf is far more passive than the Eurasian wolf is. Reason being is that a lot of people actually ended up being attacked and killed in Europe by these wolves, and so the Europeans practically drove these things to extinction over the past few hundred years, and there was really none anywhere in Europe. They've been reintroduced a little bit here in the late 20th and early 21st century, but even now they're still very low in numbers throughout most of Europe, and I believe someone actually got mauled to death in France by one of these things in like 2009, but I don't really know if I'm remembering that story correctly. Anyways, I sadly cannot find y'all a scale size of how big these things are. Wait, here we go. So, this is the Arctic wolf. That is the smallest one. There we go. It's back. Whew.
We are back.
It's back. So it looks like we actually have a size chart here. So here is the small, medium, and large. So only the Great Plains and the Mackenzie wolves get up to this size here at their biggest. It appears that all of them can end up being medium-sized. So that is a wolf at its largest size right there. And this is a wolf at its smallest size. And when you look at these compared to a 5'4" human right here in the background, which is kind of a very visible waistline there, you can see that this one is way smaller than any of the, I guess you could say, identified species of wolves. So I'm kind of on the fence as to whether that is a wolf or not. Probably a wolf dog, maybe even a husky. Huskies look pretty wolf-like, and we used to have a husky, and it kind of looks like one, but who really knows? Anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip after going through that rabbit hole about wolves and dogs, where we can see a French vab in the mud. Vabs, for some reason, in Ukraine, love mud, or they're getting stuck a lot in mud, and so we get a lot of videos of vabs in mud. But here's the clip.
Давай наваливай, бля. Давай, 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 навалю ему, блядь.
They are playing snow tires with this thing.
Man, some people do this for sport.
Yeah, people in the South do this as a sport, actually. And with that,
Some people pay good money to do that.
some people really do. And honestly, man, I feel like we need to take some of the rednecks here that do modding, and we need to take them and give them all free plane tickets to Ukraine, because I know this, man, they're going to be out there and they're going to be making everyone, both the Ukrainians and the Russians, look slow as Christmas once they get out there. They're going to be, dang it, Chad, go out there and get that winch on that tree. You know, all that crap. They'll be
call them mudding specialists and put them in BDUs and send them over.
Oh, man, dude, every time this thing gets stunk, just call in Dale and his gang of boys. They'll be getting this thing out of there in 2 minutes flat. I promise you. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from the VAB and the mud and on into our next clip, where we saw what driving through the mud looks like for a normal Ukrainian car that has been requisitioned by the Ukrainian army. It appears to be a brown sheep. Like, it looks like it has a layer of wool on this thing, but this is actually mud that's been thrown up from the road. And we can see them having to wipe it off the windshield because it's caked onto it. I don't even know how the engine is getting any air through that. Honestly, that's a miracle this thing's even running anymore, but as you can see, mud's pretty bad. It's really bad right now, and honestly, I gotta be quite truthful, y'all. It appears it's getting worse as time keeps going, because for a little bit it was dry, and now it seems as though more rain's coming in, and the ground conditions, from what we can see on video, are getting worse, and it's getting even muddier. It's becoming far more difficult even for the lighter vehicles to travel on these roads. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news. Once again, very interesting bit of news. And on into our Russian casualty report for today.
Oh no, they hit 0 again.
Oh no! None today. But look at that. We got a little bobcat right there. It's a real bobcat.
Man, that thing's looking scraggly, I tell you.
Man. Honestly, man, that video looks like that bobcat's going, Geschlick lightning.
Oh no!
Oh no! No!
Oh damn! We were back that whole time. I thought we were muted.
Oh man, I just heard you do that.
I thought we were muted.
Oh man, I just heard you do that whole thing. I was like, I'll just let him keep going. But anyways, 470 Russian troops schwacked. 23 APCs destroyed. That's actually one of the higher numbers we've seen so far. 11 supply trucks also destroyed as well. No main battle tanks were destroyed, maybe showing that there is a lack of main battle tanks on the field, or the Russians were just really lucky today, one or the other. We also saw that 15 artillery systems were destroyed. We also saw that 32 drones were shot down as well. We know that almost none of those were Shahed 136s, and we saw one anti-aircraft warfare system destroyed as well. So far, in most categories today, in terms of frontline equipment, the losses were actually pretty good in all of them, except for the tanks, which was outright 0. But beyond that, it was a fairly good day for the Ukrainians, but sadly, no special equipment vehicles destroyed. That, of course, brings sadness to Matthew. And it brings a little bit of sadness to me, knowing that that meme has died tonight, but we'll, of course, be resuscitating it tomorrow, most likely. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from our casualty report and on into our frontline news, because the frontline news, of course, has been as interesting as normal. Moving on down out of the Northeast, as there was no video clips to show there, we saw, in the direction of Bilorivka, the Ukrainian K2 unit taking out some Russian mortars. We can see the mortars right here. They're both 120 millimeters. And we can now see the drone flying in. We can see a small clothesline being held out in front of it, which is the plan B. If they can't find mortars to hit, they just find some Russian soldier and they red rover him with a clothesline there on the front of the drone. But we can now see it coming in right on the mortar position and slamming dead on. We could tell that was an accurate hit, and we can see right there it was an accurate hit, hitting directly onto the side of the 120 millimeter mortar's barrel. We can now see them continuing to hit the mortar pit and around the area, and we can now see that a fire has started from the pit, and it's now spreading out around the rest of the area. I've got to tell you, I hate lag. I hate lag a lot, Matthew. And it's sad to see that it's happened so many times tonight. And I'm very sorry to all of our viewers who have had to deal with that lag. Of course, what's the point of crying through it when we could smile and laugh through it? That's my honest opinion. What do you think, Matthew?
I don't like lag one bit. I don't smile through it, but I do laugh through it a little bit.
I think we all laughed through it a little bit. Tee. But anyways, you can see the next artillery shell landing in the area, and it appears that now the artillery is taking over, hitting this mortar position. We now see the smoke dissipating from that artillery shot.
That left a hole.
That left a hole and a half. Oh, you see another one back there. Very nice. I love it. William Harris said, no, it sucks. It does, but what's my alternative? What is my alternative, William? I can't do anything. And that's what they want us to think. But you know what we can do? We can act completely unfazed by it. And look at that. Their gasoline is pouring out into the open near that mortar pit. That's not good. That's not good.
No, that's not good.
It's literally just leaking out of this pipe right here. You can see it just pouring out like a hose.
Hot lava. Oh, I hit something.
Oh. Man, the floor is lava. Yeah, boss. We gotta jump over it, boss. We gotta hide from it, boss. And, you know, I gotta say, man, those people, they're mean people, man. You know, those folks from I'm not gonna say that. But anyways, we can see the oil continuing to burn. And as more, what the hell, man? That's so crude to say. I'm just kidding. He said it looks like crude. It kind of does look like crude oil, and that may be why it's burning so thick. We now see later on, it appears the fire is completely burned out. It appears that it has emptied all of its contents into the area, and the Ukrainians are actually still hitting the area and making sure to destroy this mortar. You now see smoke coming from the building nearby to the mortar pits, and it appears that the K2 was successful in wiping out that position. We're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on into the area of Slovyansk, where we can see just a few dozen miles behind the lines, life keeps going completely normally. And this is what the Ukrainian army is fighting for, so that way life like this can continue throughout all of Ukraine. And so with that, we are on into the clip. This was made by United 24, by the way. Slovyansk is just 45 kilometers away from Bakhmut. Despite being basically a frontline city since 2014, Slovyansk is still booming. In 2014, the Russian army held the city for 3 months until Ukraine won it back. Today, the city is once again in danger due to the full-scale Russian invasion.
Man, this looks like something HBO would make.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Nevertheless, things like this are flying over civilians' head every day. And as a result of today's attack, 1 civilian died.
I'm kind of used to it now. When you hear it every night, when you hear an explosion at 12 o'clock as if on schedule, you get used to it. At this point, I can sleep through it.
And that's the end of the clip, but once again showing towns like Slovyansk, which are a very short while away from the front lines, still trying to carry on life as normal, although they are also becoming the victims of barrages and bombardments throughout the course of the entire war, and yet still power through it. Meanwhile, the Russians on the other side of the line didn't appear to power through it that well. I'm going to show you all this video real quick because this is a very interesting one. It is a visual storytelling at its finest. Also, we're going to be muting the shoddy music, but we can see a group of Russians here getting into a Scooby-Doo van, and they're fitting into it like a clown car. We can see them all fitting inside of it. And then the guy back here, he takes a grenade from one of them, he closes the door, and this is the Scooby-Doo van not that long later. It was hit by an artillery shell almost directly alongside it, and then this was the after result of that. Yeah, it appears that the clown car didn't really work out that well for him.
Man, they put them on a poster.
Man, they put these guys on a billboard. Man, I die for my country to defend my people. What do you die for your country for, Russian man? I died to be put on billboard like it's casino on side of the road, blade.
They even put the little clip art candle in the left corner too.
Yeah, look at that. And they also put the little clip art Russian like ribbon thing down here. And they even put a sponsorship up there. It's sponsored by V. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on from the peppered Scooby-Doo van. Like, Zoink Scoop, I think that artillery shell's coming right for us. Run ready, obituary. But anyways, we're now moving on into the city of Bakhmut, where we saw a video clip from a couple of weeks ago, but it was just published today, where we can see incendiaries falling outside. This is, of course, from a few weeks ago. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And it is very interesting to see, once again, the Ukrainians enduring the incendiaries that we saw a little while ago in a new clip of it. We're now going to be moving behind the lines, where we got a British Ministry of Defense report, which appears to be observing things that we've been observing on this channel for a while. And also, it's very good to get confirmation of this from the Ministry of Defense. I've got to be honest, as far as information coming out on the war, it does appear that out of really everyone in the world, the Institute for the Study of War and the British Ministry of Defense appear to be the most accurate, based off of what we're seeing on the front lines. I would actually say that if you hear anything from the U.S. Department of Defense, to take it a little bit with a grain of salt, because it appears that sometimes the information that they issue to the public is not exactly accurate, and it actually counters what we're seeing on the battlefield. So if you're looking for more reliable information to work on as a secondary source to this channel, I would say that the British Ministry of Defense and the Institute for the Study of War are probably some of the best examples out there. But to read off the Ministry of Defense report, since the start of May 2023, Russia has increasingly ceded the initiative in the conflict and has reacted to Ukrainian action rather than actively progressing towards its own war aims. During May of 2023, Russia has launched 20 nights of one-way attack, uncrewed aerial vehicle and cruise missile attacks deep inside Ukraine. Russia has had little success in its likely aims of neutralizing Ukraine's improved air defenses and destroying Ukrainian counterattack forces. On the ground, it has redeployed security forces to react to partisan attacks inside of Western Russia. Operationally, Russian commanders are likely attempting to generate reserve forces and position them where they believe a Ukrainian counterattack will occur. However, this has probably been undermined by uncommitted forces, instead being sent to fill gaps in the front line around Bakhmut. And this appears to be entirely what we've been seeing as well. We have observed that Russian reserve forces that were a part of their Operation Reserve that would be used in the attempt of a Ukrainian breakthrough have been completely depleted, and they've now been moved on into the front lines around Bakhmut to try and plug in the holes that the Russian 72nd Brigade left behind the southern front, and also the massive hole that the Wagner unit left in the center of Bakhmut city itself. And so it appears, much like the Ministry of Defense is reporting, the Russians are certainly in a pickle as far as their reaction will be to further Ukrainian offensives. They really have no possible reaction to a further Ukrainian offensive. Whatever they'll have in the area is the only thing they'll get to try and counter what the Ukrainians will be doing. And so with that, we're now going to be moving back on into the Bakhmut news, and now towards the area of Klishkivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians had taken on even more Russian prisoners today. And we see them right here. Bound and on the ground.
Is it a war crime to make them say Slava Ukraine?
I don't think so.
They ought to make them say it.
Oh, they ought to make him say it. So that we're now going to be moving on to the next clip, where we also saw the 3rd Brigade going into pretty much head-to-head fighting against Russians in their own trenches. So we're going to have to mute the epic music here. And we can see the Russian right here to the right, and we can see some Ukrainians over here to the left. But you now see them exchanging fire in between the two trenches, camera mostly keeping on the Russian forces. And we now see the Russian coming under more gunfire and getting down. And we can now see that the drone is turning on its auxiliary light, telling us that that Russian is running out of luck as the air support's here. We see the bomblet landed close up front, and that allowed the Ukrainians to advance forward onto the position and to begin to clear it on out. And I gotta tell you, man, I have never seen a cleaning job this good since hell, I don't even know when. I got to be honest with you. I'm trying to make sure I pull my punches here tonight on the jokes, and that was about to be a really spicy one. So we will keep that at bay. Matt thinks I'm going to sit there and go, oh, you forgot it, didn't you? And then I'll have to say it. But anyways, that's the end of that clip right there. And great to see the 3rd Brigade once again clearing Russian trenches and continuing to take ground. Meanwhile, in the Kurdamivka direction, we also saw the 92nd Brigade taking its turn and hitting Russian forces in the area as well. We're going to be muting that because that sounds like some kind of a grunge metal band. And we can now see them dropping the bomblet onto the Russians right here. Poof. And we see it hit right on the Russians. And oh no, it's an ammunition cook-off.
Oh, look, it's an old Soviet cook-off.
Look, it's an old Soviet cookout. Wow.
Oh, there's an old Soviet bastard crawling along the ground.
Oh, look, it's an old Soviet truck with only half a canvas. And man, they put the ass in canvas. But anyways, up for that, we can see them dropping a bomblet onto a Euro 4320. And it appears to land right near the rear. Oh, right on the wheels. Nice. And we now see the truck. It appears that it's maybe out of control even because the wheels have been blown up. We can now see them going for the infantry now.
This is a clown show going on right here.
And they put a little bit of English on that one, and it appears that that guy he's not doing well. And it also appears his helmet fell off in the middle of falling right before the bomblet blew up. So head protection was not there. Remember, always wear protection. And this guy was a little too stupid to remember that. With that, that's the end of that clip. And great to see that the 92nd Brigade was able to make sure to take out Russian forces in the area. We're now going to be moving on to our next clip, where we also saw some Colombian volunteers. Now, I know that many people think of Colombia as a, well, you know, most people think of the cartels when they think of Colombia. And yeah, you wouldn't be wrong. There are a decent amount of cartels in Colombia, and there was especially a lot of them, a massive amount of very well-organized ones back in the 80s. The thing is, though, is that in the modern day, those cartels have actually provided an inexhaustible amount of experience in guerrilla warfare for the Colombian army. And there's a decent amount of videos out there from Colombia showing the Colombian army engaging the cartels deep inside the jungles of Colombia. It is incredibly tough fighting, and this fighting has molded the Colombia. I highly suggest that you all look at the documentaries of that, and also it may have been a little bit of lag there, and it looks like we may be going through
just a tad,
a smidging of lag. But I would highly suggest you all look into the Colombian army right now.
All them out.
Yeah, oh man, I'm telling you. Anyways, here's the clip. We now see him trying to get the dirt out of his food. Right there, he's shaking the can around. Well, you now see his food is smoking. It was not smoking before the blast. Damn, was that guy giving him a crack check? What the hell? What the hell was that?
Oh no! Hey, where's this from? Ukraine?
Yeah, this is from Ukraine. That's like Colombian volunteers. They look fun to be around, honestly, man. That was hilarious. But with that, we're going to be moving on from the Bakhmut battlefield and down on into the area of Donetsk, and where we saw that the 5th Brigade was able to destroy a Russian tank in the area today. I would play the music. Sadly, it's copyrighted. We can now see a Russian tank moving into the open. We can now see a Russian tank traveling into the open air, most likely trying to find a mate. Right there, an epileptic fit was just had for my viewers who are light sensitive, which I also just got a headache from that. We can now see the tank burning in an inferno as it has been thoroughly destroyed. It was a T-62M, one of Russia's weaker examples, one of the weaker of the species, and appears to have been cold. Actually, that appears to have actually been one of Russia's finest examples, a T-80 BVM. We can continue to see that the tank is roasting, and it's beautiful, of course, to know that an example of the species has been destroyed. And while we are one for ecological diversity, we do not really respect the invasive pests that the Russians have become. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip and on to our next one further down the Donetsk line, where we also saw that the 501st was able to stop an attack today. Here we can see the Russians laid out across the field, and it appears that they are hiding, or more so, hibernating. Russian forces are forced into hibernation whenever a Ukrainian grenade lands nearby. We can see an example of that right there. Smoky. We see them hunkering down, and it appears that they're trying to avoid the shelling, but it doesn't really appear that that's being met with great success. Or as Borat would say, great success! And we can now see them still moving around, still hunkering down in the literal flat, wide open air. Not even looking for a berm to hide behind or a trench. And we now see another artillery shell landing nearby. Dreadful. So that's the end of the clip. But it appears the 501st Brigade was able to catch him in the wide open today. Meanwhile, Marinka, we saw the beginning of another firefight once more. This video speaks for itself.
Как видно, понимал, ёпты.
We now see this man laying out the beef. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but a little bit of a look at the firefights going on in Marinka. We're now going to be moving out of Marinka and down into the southern front, where we saw in the direction of Stepne today, a D-30 was destroyed by Ukrainian forces. I'm sorry, correction, this is actually a Ukrainian D-30 that was hit by a Russian Lancet. See the Russians eyeballing the D-30 in this area. And we now see what appears to be the Lancet camera as the Lancet is closing in. And this is Russia's massive propaganda victory of the week. You now see it coming down right on the artillery piece. We don't see any crew members nearby, and it appears the Lancet was able to hit directly onto the D-30 and may have taken it out. We can see a large pillar of white smoke coming up, and that may show that that D-30 is gone. And it's, of course, sad to see it. I know the Ukrainians will lose this war, losing artillery pieces that are as old as the ones the Russians are using. I mean, you know, it could have been something far less valuable, like a HIMARS or an M777 or something, but it's good to know they are hitting the artillery pieces that actually matter. We're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and further down the line, and into the area of Molnivka, where we saw the Ukrainians get an accurate grenade drop-off. We can see the Russians right there. We can see two Ukrainians further down the trench. And we can see that this drone has its work cut out for it, as it has to get this drone drop precise. We see them drop the bomblet right onto the Russians and take all of them out. It was a 4-1. You can't even get that good of a deal at target. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And really nice to see that they were able to wipe out those Russians. And of course, save the two Ukrainians that were in that trench as well. We're now going to be moving on a little bit further down the line and towards the area of Rykov and Yekharivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians were able to capture a T-62M, one of Russia's newest tanks to be introduced to the front, which was introduced actually around June or July of last year. And we see a nice layer of dust on top of the breech of this thing, showing you that it was literally pulled out of the supply yard and straight into service. Not gonna lie though, the paint is pretty fresh on the inside of this turret. So this may have been one of the better existing examples. And you see them taking a good gander around the inside of this T-62M and giving us a good look in it as well. T-62Ms were notorious for actually being a cramped main battle tank. And as far as, I guess you could say, square meter per crew, it is a very cramped tank. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, but very nice to see they were able to capture one of Russia's oldest and crappiest tanks, and once again proving that they are in frontline service. Now moving on into the area of Kherson in the Dnipro River, we also saw an attack upon Russian boat forces, and it appears that this was done by the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. Here's the clip, we'll have to mute it, but I will be reading the translation. We heard the sound of fire. From the very beginning, we opened fire and shot their commander in the head. We can now see the Russian boat passing by right there. We now see them opening fire on the boat, and of course taking out the commander immediately. We heard the sound of fire. From the very beginning, we opened fire. We shot the commander in the head. Once again, we can now see them laying down fire on the boat once more. And we can now see them hitting it once it's beached itself on the side of the river. One of the main tasks was to land on one of the islands in the Krasnodar region to clean up and take up positions. After we landed, took up positions, cleaned up the previous island, spent there half a day, we heard the sound of a boat. The sound of the boat was at first incomprehensible, whether ours or Peter's. Half an hour later, the boat appeared and we saw it with a big impact. What caught my attention most was their aluminum bowls on their heads and white blankets. From the very beginning, we opened fire.
So we started blasting.
So anyways, I started blasting. When you see them continuing to lay down fire on that boat. And I guess you could say they're not buying them a boat. When the boat came in, the enemy was heavily prepared. We were hit by a machine gun, but we managed to survive, and we were able to destroy the boat. First, we took off the bowler, which was behind the bow. Then we took off their commander with a shot in the head and hit the engine. After the engine caught fire, the boat went into the reeds. After that, our commander decided that we needed to retreat because the enemy artillery was working on the island. After that, we retreated, and literally half an hour later, the island began to open. After a couple hours, we had to get to our destroyed boat and finish it off. The enemy had 5 boats. We went out to a distance of about 5 to 10 meters and opened fire with a large caliber machine gun and destroyed the boat, which we can see right there. We had a funny story. We were taught to work on water. Of course, it is safer to work on land because there are always options where you can go. You can dive somewhere. We don't dive into the water much. Enemy artillery is purely luck. We are lucky. Sounds of gunfire. That's the end of the clip. And it's very interesting to hear these guys actually did not land, and I'll have to correct this. They didn't land here. No. They said they landed on an island in the Krasnodar region, over here. I don't know how. I don't know how they do that, considering that the entire Sea of Azov is Russian-controlled, but that's what they said in the clip. They said they landed on an island in the Krasnodar area, which means somewhere over there. So we're going to put it there. But with that, we're now going to be moving on up into Kiev to cover the speech of President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on the 462nd day of the war. And so, without further ado, here's a speech from the one, the only President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні робоча поїздка в нашу Одесу. Подякував тут нашим воїнам за захист регіону та всієї України. Зокрема, відвідав шпиталь. наших поранених захисників. Побажав якнайшвидшого одужання, мав честь вручити державні нагороди, подякував нашим лікарям. Провів в Одесі спеціальну і тривалу нараду щодо безпекової та соціальної ситуації в регіоні, керівництво області, військові, правоохоронці. Область пріоритетна з усіх точок зору. Саме Одещина – одне із основ безпеки усього нашого півдня, а отже і держави. Дуже важливі результати є на Одещині у Служби безпеки України в протидії російським диверсантам. Була доповідь генерала Москальова щодо ситуації в районах відповідальності ОСУ Одеса. Детально розібрали, як посилити оборону, детально ж обговорили економічні питання, робочі місця, соціальне забезпечення. Провів виїзне засідання Ставки, постійна увага фронту, доповіді командувачів Хортиця, Таврія, Главком, особливі доповіді керівників ГУР та СБУ. Деталі згодом. Спеціальна увага нашому зерновому коридору, безпеці у Чорному морі. Світ знає, яку фундаментальну роль наш морський зерновий експорт відіграє для продовольчої безпеки та й загалом безпека у Чорному морі, дієвість норм міжнародного права щодо мореплавства – це глобально важливий безпековий фактор. Усі морські країни світу зараз бачать, що може загрожувати їхнім портам, їхнім акваторіям, якщо Росія зійде з рук блокування мореплавства в Чорному морі. Наведу лише один приклад. Наразі з 3 портів, які були погоджені в рамках Чорноморської зернової ініціативи, порт Південний, фактично заблокований, понад 1,5 мільйони тонн агропродукції накопичено в одному Південному. І це зерно, яке очікують щонайменше 10 країн світу, зокрема Туреччина, Єгипет, Бангладеш, Китай. Очевидно, чим менше продовольства постачається у ці країни, у ці регіони, тим вище там ціни на їжу, тим більше втрачають люди в цих країнах зі своїх сімейних бюджетів. Тобто блокада одного порту в Україні створює надзвичайно серйозні ризики для різних народів, причому, зокрема, для тих, відносно з якими Росія ще й намагається спекулювати. І я дякую усім в світі, хто допомагає нам збільшувати простір безпеки в Чорному морі, хто тисне на Росію задля розблокування постачання продовольства. Провів сьогодні в Одесі нараду щодо розвитку нашої портової інфраструктури. І ще одне. Працюємо над тим, щоб друга половина цього тижня була змістовною для наших відносин із партнерами. Наші міжнародники роблять все, щоб цей тиждень можна було завершити потрібними Україні новинами. А зараз я дякую Сполученим Штатам Америки, особисто президенту Байдену, обом партіям Конгресу і кожному американцю, усім, хто цінує свободу, за новий оборонний пакет для наших воїнів. Ракети для Петріотів, ракети для Хаймарсів, артилерія та інше дуже необхідна нам зброя. Необхідна саме зараз. Слава усім нашим воїнам, хто зараз в бою заради України, хто на бойових постах, у бойових завданнях. Дякую усім, хто працює заради нашої держави. І дякую тобі, Одеса, за цей день. Слава Україні!
And so with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on the 462nd day of the war in Ukraine. It's amazing to think he's been giving out speeches like that the entire time. But another thing that's been happening this entire time is y'all's input to some very interesting questions that have been posed to all of y'all. These questions have been made by the Lee Spring Army Questions Field Kitchen. And we cook up these questions nice and good each and every day. They are, in fact, better than omelets. I can't guarantee they're much better than an omelet, but they're better, which means that is a very high quality and something that most people cannot achieve in their life. And so we have to see what y'all have been saying in response to these questions that have been posed to y'all as an entire army. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so moving into our final segment of polls and questions, our very first one says, BAE Systems has announced it will open a factory in Ukraine, and what does this mean for Ukraine? And just for some context, BAE Systems is a defense contractor, and I think they're based out of Britain. Now, they make all kinds of stuff. But it looks like 79% said excellent, it will help with the war. 12% said unsure, 8% said it's good and bad at the same time, and 1% said not good, Ukraine doesn't need that. And for me, I think it will help with the war. They can develop bombs and build them right inside of Ukraine, which cuts down on shipping and a bunch of other costs. So I'm with the 79%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, not only is Bay an amazing weapons systems company, they are also usually people's, I guess you could say, romantic interest. For some reason, whenever you're out in public, you can always hear someone say, Bay, what you doing? And they're over there saying, I'm making a brand new laser-guided precision weapon system. And it's like, that's a weird relationship right there. But anyways, moving on from that corny joke, and on into the answer to that question, in my opinion, I would say that's good for the Ukrainians, in my honest opinion. But, you never know. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Uh-oh, Matthew. Bert and Ernie's here. Trying to steal the fire
let me tell you the story about Bert and Ernie real quick. The viewer in the live chat. He showed up. He made some comments that made me a little suspicious. I thought maybe he was just joking around with that username. But I told him as a test, I figured I'd test this one. I said, say, I love the Enforcers. I asked him a couple of times. He acted like I didn't know what he didn't know what I was talking about. Blah 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 blah. But long story short, he never said it. And I said, bye bye. And then he went gone. And then I said, I got spies in your Discord.
Oh man, dude. As soon as I saw that one, I was like, oh yeah, that one's an obvious troll right there for sure. Because no one knows the Bert and Ernie joke unless you've been over there, unless you heard us say something in response to that. By the way, I would love to let y'all know. The funny thing is, because we do have spies over there, and they're always just in case anyone was wondering, they're always reporting back everything that goes on over there. Some of them were asking over there, have they never watched Sesame Street? And the honest answer is no, we never have. So, the first time I ever heard about Bert and Ernie was just recently. And then when we looked at them, I was like, hey. I was like, they got our head shapes. So I was like, that's not that bad off. And honestly, we'll own it. Hell yeah. I mean, what's wrong with Bert and Ernie? I mean, honestly, what I think is worse, just me, Matthew, my honest opinion, what I think is worse is being the trash bucket thing.
Yes.
I honestly think that's worse. If anyone was a character, I think the trash bucket animal is a lot worse. I don't even know what the hell that thing's called, but yeah, that's the other one over there. But anyways, and also, Matthew, that's going to be the next thing. Oh man, that's going to be the next one.
Yes.
We've been slammed. We've been dragged through the mud. And then they'll act like that's crossing the line right there. But, whatever.
What's interesting is the spies I have over there gathering information for me to make sure nothing, out of whack is being said, like threats or anything like that. They're just old, channel members that act like they're not, a part of our channel anymore. And they think that they're part of their team now. It's crazy they actually believe that junk. But, a lot of old people that used to watch this channel, or at least they say went over there to do that. But surely that won't expose any of my spies at all.
Nah, I don't think it will. I don't think it will. And I mean, hell, some of the stuff they say over there is so interesting, because whenever we have lag problems like we've had a lot tonight, our best guess is to say that we're being DDoS attacked, and most likely by that group. And, some people say, you know what, that'd be bullcrap, because, that guy, he's never suggested that people come over here and attack us. Oh, no, not on YouTube, but on the Discord. They sit over there and they literally come up with plans where they're going to come over here and try and brigade on us daily, pretty much. So we have a pretty good indication that if anything happens at this point to the channel, there is pretty good evidence to suggest it's folks from over there. So with that, wait a minute, wait, hang on. Don't knock the Cookie Monster. Oh, well, we will. I mean, hey, wait a minute. Hold up. Hang on, Mandy. I was just thinking right there. That might be a better one. Can't stop eating cookies.
Oh, call it red-handed in the cookie jar.
Call it red-handed in the cookie jar. But anyways, with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Very interesting to see. And it looks like that man got boit-and-oinied. He got oinied. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And our second poll says Putin has announced that he will not attend Erdogan's inauguration. And why do you think that is? It looks like 46% said he's worried about assassination, 42% said he's worried about getting arrested, 4% said unsure, and 7% said he's just feeling tired. And personally, I really doubt he's worried about getting arrested. He will have all of his security detail with him. I think he's more worried about getting assassinated through some kind of covert means, which is pretty reasonable because a lot of people would probably like to get him. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say he's probably not going to Erdogan's, I guess you could say, inauguration, because he probably doesn't support Erdogan, because Erdogan supports Ukraine. And while they've kept somewhat okay relations with the Russians compared to most other Western countries, they still openly support Ukraine with weapons, arms, and equipment. So I think that that may be the reason why he's not showing up. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, in my opinion. And once again, there's no such thing as a wrong answer to that poll. All of them may be correct, but that would be my opinion to it. And also I have to remind folks of that, because every once in a while, folks for some reason think that because I state my opinion on the poll, that's what everyone has to go with. That's just my opinion. You know, if there was a clear answer to something, I feel like we probably wouldn't be running a poll on it. It would just be the facts. But considering that there are multiple different interpretations you can make of that, that's why there's a poll. So you can really have any opinion you want, and it's about as it is as equal in value as my opinion. But then I put mine out there. It doesn't mean that because you disagree with me, you have to try and then send us a bomb in the mail or something like that, or threaten us in the live chat. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, our third poll says, Xi Jinping has told his national security chief to prepare for the worst-case scenario, and what are your thoughts? 37% said it's fine and just posturing by China. 34% said not good, China is getting wild. 8% said unsure, and 22% said, it sounds ominous, but meh. And for me, if they were truly worried about something and they were preparing for the worst-case scenario, why would they come out and tell the public about it? They would keep that quiet and simply put the plans into action. So to me, this seems like posturing. They want people to know about this, so it's intended to influence the thoughts that people are having about the situation. So probably just intimidation. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it is most likely just intimidation and fear, because, you know, whenever anything serious is happening in America, you never hear people in the government go, oh, y'all, it's about to get really, really bad. In fact, they try and tell you nothing's going wrong and everything's fine. So that is most likely fear and intimidation going off of what we've normally seen. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also Warren Edgar Gillespie. I hate to tell you, but you can't say that kind of stuff here on YouTube. No. Your social credit score right now, sir, now, Matthew. Oh, it's got data.
Back.
It's back. It's back, baby. We're back better than ever. Watch this drive. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly. Very interesting here, man. Right after we got done talking about Bert and Ernie, we get lagged again. Interesting. Interesting. It's very interesting to me. Aw, man. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one says the U.S. unveiled another $300 million arms package for Ukraine, and its support remaining consistent. 78% said yes, it's consistent support. 5% said unsure. 12% said it seems to ebb and flow. And 5% said no, support is getting low. And to me, it seems like the support seems to be ebbing and flowing. The little $300 million packages, they are, no small feat, but they're not, billion-dollar packages like we see sometimes. To me, it seems like maybe they're in a bit of a dip in their support right now, but I'm sure we'll probably see another billion-dollar package coming up very soon with larger equipment included in it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest, I think it's just one of the smaller support packages, most likely focusing on ammunition alone. And we'll probably see a larger support package again, not that far down the road. Because usually these smaller support packages are just there to make sure to take care of the ammunition side of things and keeping everything over there running. It's the larger support packages that come around every once in a while that deliver new weapon systems to Ukraine. So we probably will be seeing another one of those again soon. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw Underscore say, did you or the Enforcer ever have dial-up internet? I barely recall back in the day when my father used to have dial-up internet, and I remember the little weird sound it would make, but I really don't remember much more than that. I also remember playing little goofy arcade games on the computer when I was 8, when we were living somewhere else. But Enforcer, do you recall any of that, or was that beyond your time to remember?
I think that was beyond my time. I just remember VHS tapes. That's all I remember.
Okay. Well, you didn't get to experience all the,
No, I remember that, though. I remember that sound. That sound, I remember that. But I don't really remember ever using it because I was like 6 or 7 or something like that. So, hell, I wouldn't remember that. But I hope we addressed that fairly well. Now y'all know I cannot remember that. I do remember VHS tapes though, and how that little tape thing would like pop out, and I didn't know how the hell to fix that, so I go, "Mama!" And then she'd come running in with that little plastic key and sit there and fix it, and she would rewind it. I remember that, but I don't remember the dial-up all too well because I never got to get on the computer. And like honestly, to let y'all in on a little bit of an interesting thing, the first time I ever got on the computer was when I was 12 or 13. That was the first ever time I ever actually got to get on a computer. Before that, I didn't even really know what a computer was. There was like one in the house, but it was in my dad's office. Never really knew anything about it. And he was getting rid of his old computer, so he let me get on it, and he actually let me use it. The first thing I did, actually the first game I ever played, if y'all know this one, was Napoleon Total War. That was the first video game I ever played in my life, which is very weird for a 12 or 13-year-old to start off on. To start playing a game is for that game to be Napoleon Total War. But nonetheless, that's how my gaming experience started, which is kind of how this channel existed before the war a little bit, was as a gaming channel. And
man, the first gaming thing I remember was when we got an Xbox 360. I thought that was like going wild, like getting to play that thing. That was super cool. I still remember it.
Yeah, I remember that too. Wait a minute, no. Actually, we did play video games before that, Matthew. Remember we had that Nintendo 64, and we would play like Mission Impossible and stuff on it, but we were never good at it. But I don't really classify that as video games. Like as far as the modern ones go, the first modern video game I ever played was Napoleon Total War, and that intro is still in my head. If y'all know what I'm talking about, where it's like the cinematic intro, where it's like, they said Egypt could never be conquered. They said under the shade of the olive trees, Italy could never be united. And now they say nothing. Like, that intro is still stuck in my head to this day. And the Napoleon Total War soundtrack, because I just played that nonstop because that was the only game I had for like a year and a half. So I just played that thing all the time and got really good at it too. I actually, like, was really into it. And I think that was also a big reason why I got into history, is because the game was in a historical setting that happened in real life. And I just got into it. So, you know, actually, interestingly enough, though, I never knew what the Battle of Austerlitz was for, like, most of my life. Although I played Napoleon Total War, which is so weird. But anyways, see a lot of y'all going over y'all's video game experience as well.
You remember playing pinball on the old Windows systems?
Yeah, no, I do remember that. A little ding-a-ling-ding-a-ling as the ball bent. Yes, I do remember that. And I remember we would just sit down there and spam the little button to make the little levers move, because there was no strategy that we had. We were just trying to keep that thing in there as long as possible. But anyways.
Yeah, and also you remember the Brick Breaker on the little BlackBerry phones?
Oh, yeah.
Little, like mini keyboard phones?
Brick Breaker was Brick Breaker was the G of video games. Like that, I would remember that, playing that a lot, because that was the game that our parents would give us whenever we were waiting somewhere with them. We were very well-behaved kids, by the way. We weren't one of those kids that like went running around screaming in stores, but we would get bored. And so our mom and our dad had BlackBerry phones at that time, and they'd be like, "Here, take this." And we would play the little Brick Breaker game on it, and that was like revolutionary to us and really cool and like very advanced. And looking back at it now, that was like the most unadvanced video game you could ever play, but it was like the world to us when we were growing up. That was a really cool game to play when sitting in like Verizon or like a furniture store or something and you had nothing to do. But anyways, with that, I hope we had a little bit of a trip down memory lane with y'all about the games we played growing up, because we actually ended up playing a lot of really old ones, but the first modern one I ever played was Napoleon Total War, and that stuck with me. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so our last poll says, the Ukrainian offensive will now be known as the summer offensive, and what are your thoughts on Ukraine waiting so late? 51% said it was strategic and now is perfect. 25% said urgency was a political tactic. 12% said unsure. And 12% said Ukraine misled the West, but it's fine. And to me, I would say that I think the urgency was personally a political tactic. Ukraine kind of used that to their advantage to get more equipment to prepare for their summer offensive. It's unclear to me whether or not the U.S. knew that they weren't going to go ahead and do it during the spring. And it now looks certain that it will happen either during the summer, and to me, it's even a possibility it might happen during the fall. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's most likely going to happen in the later part of summer. most likely right before the Rasputitsa season comes around again, because it was an entirely political motivator to say that the offensive is coming, because that put pressure on the West to send more weapon systems so that hopefully they would be there probably after the offensive had ended. Now we know that that's not the case. It's all those weapon systems are probably going to be there right before the offensive begins. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are fresh out of polls, so we're moving back to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a $100 donation, very generous, from Rob Eisman. And Rob, thank you very much for that support, and also, it's good to see you once again, and I'm glad to see that it appears you are doing much better. And Rob says, 3 Ohio-class SSGNs serviced greater than 5,000 nautical miles apart, each one carrying 154 TLAMs, all capable of hitting targets in Russia and China. No biggie. Scary thing, the 3 subs surfaced within minutes of each other and happened in 2007. 15-year-old technology, and run silent, run deep.
And I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Rob Eisman, and also sharing with us a little bit of what you are known for here in the Lee Spring Army, which is your sub knowledge. Rob Eisman, believe it or not, everyone, is actually a retired submariner and was actually a part of the United States backbone of the Navy, which is its submarine force, and so he has a lot of knowledge about the U.S. And its the U.S. Navy and its submarines, and it's very interesting to hear that, and very neat to know that little fact, because I never knew that happened. And also, that's very neat to hear that they were pretty much everywhere, and they all serviced within minutes of each other. That is really cool to hear, and also lets us know that the communication in between them all is very well put together by the Navy. Now, to also say something else really interesting, since we're on the topic of naval stuff, Rob, is that I've been looking at some videos of naval disasters, and I've got to say, I found a brand new channel. If any of y'all were interested in these kinds of naval disasters, and let me go find the name of it real quick, because I was actually watching one of these videos before I started working on the stream tonight, and that video was, let's see here. Let me see which it is. It's from a channel called Brick and Mortar. And let me go to his channel real quick. And let me show you all this. It is a very interesting channel about maritime disasters, among similar things. They have 208,000 subscribers. And with the amount of detail that they go through, it's documentary level. It's amazing. It's very impressive. And I highly suggest checking out their videos. I actually watched 2 of their videos today. This one right here, the Ethan Allen, which was a boat in a lake in New York that sank and like 10 people died on board. And then also I started watching this documentary here, although I sped through this one a lot. I just had to click through it because I didn't really have enough time to watch the whole thing. But I also watched this one about the SSL Faro, which was, they're really neat, actually, very interesting. And I have to say, while I'm not really a big fan of the idea of working in the maritime world, for some reason I just feel like it's not for me, it is very interesting to hear about how things work in the maritime circles, and also what kind of disasters occur out there at sea, because it's just very, very interesting to hear about to me for some reason. Very neat and very fascinating. So I'd highly suggest, if y'all have not heard of this channel, to go and check them out if you're into this kind of stuff about maritime disasters and similar things, because it's a very well put together channel. Their information is well researched, and it's a top-notch one. I just have to say it's great. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Rob, and sharing that neat little tidbit of info with us, because that's kind of the stuff I love to hear about. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you, Rob, make this channel possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
And also, I had the same thought as well, and Andrew put it in the live chat. He said, stretch duck. Is that like pulled pork? I was thinking, I was going to say something like that, but I didn't say it, but I was thinking the same thing.
So, interestingly enough, what the stretch duck is, to just tell you a quick little story about that thing, because it's really interesting. Stretch ducks are those little tourist amphibious things where they do the road and water tours, but they're made out of these old Duck W's, which are an amphibious vehicle that the Army made in the Second World War to bring troops ashore and also supplies as well. These things are pretty, like, they were hardly usable for the Army even during the Second World War. They are practically unusable in the modern world and have a very sketchy safety record. And on top of that, they elongated some of these in civilian service. So these things are called ducks, by the way. That's their nickname. So when they elongated them, they called them stretch ducks. So that's how it got its name. It's such a stupid name. And also, here's one of them that's used for like the land and river tours. And this one's actually used in London. of all places.
That's a ugly looking thing.
Yeah, it is ugly. And dude, imagine getting a wake from the Thames River that laps up over that window and touches you. I think you just die on the spot. Like, I think there's no survival from that.
Like they got a smokestack on that one too, like it's a semi truck.
Dude, that thing is chuffing, man. They call that thing a steam train. Call that thing the Flying Scotsman.
That's kind of redneck for real.
That is kind of. I'm not gonna lie. That is really redneck. I'm not even gonna lie. But let me see if I can find you the. Here, I'll show you the Stretch Duck 7. Stretch Duck 7. So this is the one that sank and like killed 10 people in Branson, Missouri. Is this one right here, the Stretch Duck 7?
Well, how'd it kill them? They didn't know how to swim.
Dude, this thing sank like a rock. Like, it filled with water and sank, I think, within like a minute. And also they put down like these like canvas windows that locked in place, so you couldn't even move them up.
Oh, man.
So they pretty much just sank in a cage and drowned to death.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was a tragedy, but that's kind of how they ended up getting stuck and drowned in that thing. I think like 10 people survived, but another 10 died, and there was a whole family of like 9 people on board. And out of that family of 9, only one of them survived. And the rest of their family went down with the Stretch Duck. So kind of a funny name, but a really like sad and dark backstory. And this pretty much ended up killing like the Stretch Duck little, like, I guess you say like tour thing. This thing's a death trap pretty much. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyways, with that, hope that does address that little story fairly well and that little tidbit of info. And thank you once again for the support, Rob, and also sharing with us that very interesting little maritime story as well. And also, speaking of maritime, where the hell is Walter A. Lakota?
Where is he at?
Where's he at? Where's he at? But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have another one actually from Rob Eisman, who puts in another 50. And thank you very much, Rob, for the continued support. He says, I need to give a thank you to the enforcers and the LSA-in family. Unable to watch last night, but was informed of the serious support. A huge, serious thank you, LSA. Nothing life-threatening, as my doctor said. I have a kidney stone the size of a small asteroid. And Rob, let me tell you something. We have personal experience with kidney stones, multiple times actually. Those things are horrific. You feel like you're dying, and you end up having to go to the hospital. So same thing happened to you, so I must say I do know your pain.
Yes, and I thank you so much for the support as well, Rob. And also, I'm glad to know that you were very happy to hear of the massive amount of support that everyone gave you when they heard you were going through some slight medical issues. We have had personal experience with kidney stones. Both of our parents actually ended up getting kidney stones in the middle of the stream running last year. And interestingly enough, somehow we ended up getting them to the hospital, having them taken care of, ended up bringing them home, and still ended up running a stream both times on both of those days. I gotta be honest with y'all. Looking back at that, I don't even know how we managed to do all of that in a single day twice for both of our parents. But that was a pretty big deal that happened back in the day for us, and you know that was. And seeing both of them in pain like that so bad that both of them had to end up getting an ambulance call because they couldn't even really move. I was like, oh my God. I was like, kidney stones are horrendous. And I would honestly want to avoid ever getting a kidney stone. So
I thought they were both dying when they both got kidney stones at the same time. I was like, oh my God, at the same time?
Yeah, so like to tell y'all the crazy thing about it, our mom got a kidney stone and we ended up rushing her to the hospital. And then as soon as we got her back from the hospital from having a kidney stone, our dad got a kidney stone as soon as we got back. And then we had to get an ambulance for him and send him to the hospital. So we're like, what the hell's going on here? It was rough. It was a very rough day that day and a very rough day the next day because we had to take care of them, take care of college, take care of the stream, take care of everything. And we still ended up running this stream. And I still ended up getting, because we had a Discord server at that point, I think I actually ended up getting in a Discord community call at that point as well. Just to put it out there, what a human can do, what an American can do when they're dedicated to their job. You know, not trying to throw shots at anyone or anything, but you know, anyways, with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And also, I wish you the best of luck, Rob, and I hope that the kidney stone is gone soon. Back in the day, they used to do like the little radiation therapy or something like that to get rid of the stone. I don't think they do that anymore, or it was some kind of like a seismic thing. I don't really know what it was. But I don't
ultrasonic.
Yeah, ultrasonic. I don't think they do that anymore for like health and safety reasons. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, Rob. And I hope that you do continue on the path to recovery. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for enjoying this channel so much, Rob, and of course helping us to keep this thing on running.
And also, I saw some folks saying it's probably the water. And y'all will be surprised to know that Birmingham water in Alabama is so full of calcium, it will literally make calcium buildup happen on literally anything that the water touches. It's crazy how much calcium's in this water, and that's probably what caused it.
So an interesting story for the folks who aren't really from here. Here in Alabama, there's actually, we have the purest calcium bicarbonate anywhere in the world, which is what that's the fancy term for marble. And you can actually see a massive marble pit called Gant's Quarry down here near Sylacauga. And this is where, of course, the purest, whitest marble, calcium bicarbonate in the world is mined out of, is here. This is literally the rawest form of marble. And it's used in everything. It's actually used in toothpaste as well. But one thing that is bad about that, though, is that just up the road in Birmingham, the calcium bicarbonate does not end. The vein kind of exists like in this area, kind of, because you can also see it over here in Calera as well, where they also get a large amount of calcium bicarbonate. But it also gets in our water supply, and as in the name, it is calcium. And it's a lot of it. Like when we run the shower, because we have like glass fronts in our showers. If you run the shower and drops of water get on that glass, literally within the glass being perfectly clean before the shower and afterwards, you can actually see clear calcium build up on the glass. There is that much calcium in the water up here. It is insane. I've never been anywhere. I don't think we're back yet. And now we're back.
Hey!
But the calcium is so bad up here that it actually starts clogging pipes. Like, my shower pipe actually ended up getting clogged by calcium so bad the water would not filter. So we actually had to end up getting like an ice pick, taking off the shower drain, and just picking away at the calcium in that pipe to try and get it out of there. It is that bad. And it was like an inch thick on all sides. The pipe is like huge, the drain pipe for that shower, but it was like an inch thick in the circumference of the thing. It was unbelievably crazy. But yeah, the calcium up there is bad.
Now we've learned that we just have to filter the water. You definitely have to filter it through something. I'm not sure if our filters are working that well, but it's helping.
Yeah, it's helping. And then we also end up drinking bottled water as well, because the water up here just doesn't really taste that good anyways. Even if you filter it, it still tastes like kind of like raw poo-poo. So we just end up drinking bottled water as well. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I completely understand kidney stones because we drink literal calcium for water. And so with that, we are on to the next video. Thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a generous $50 super chat from KG. And thank you, KG, very much for that support. He says, in any counter-intel situation, we follow the same mushroom doctrine. Keep them in the dark and feed them SHIT. It's cool to see Ukraine adapt and adopt that philosophy.
And I thank you so much for the support, KG, and I'd agree. That seems to be what they're doing, and they do a really good job of it as well. I cannot deny the Ukrainians are number one at doing that, because it seems as though the Russians have never caught on to what they're really doing yet. So with that, thank you so much once again for the huge amount of support, KG, and finding this channel worthwhile to support and appreciating it enough that you would support us like that. And I hope we address that fairly well, because they are, of course, feeding the Russians pure excrement. And in return, they are getting pure gold. And so with that, we're on to the next thing. Thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemert. And thank you, Marion, very much for that support. And sadly, I think she's left for the night.
Aww.
But she said new internet and coffee.
Hey, thank you so much for the support, Marion. We are hopefully getting new internet soon. And thank you for the coffee as well. Nitro Cold Brew keeps me going for these streams. And without Nitro Cold Brew, this wouldn't be possible. You know, Matthew, I could do an invitation. Aw, man. Hopefully we can get sponsored by these guys if I say them enough on stream. But Nitro Cold Brew really does the spot. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Marion Deemert, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you do make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and real quick, while I try to get my spreadsheet to cooperate with me once more, let's see. The next one goes to KG yet again, who puts in a $20 super chat once more. And thank you, KG, very much for that support. He says Ukraine NNW flanks will be vulnerable via Belarus during the Ukrainian push. Russia and Lukashenko questionable at best. Poles invited to Lutsk. Korotsyn, and Lviv if Belarus amassed troops on the border, a little birdie, quote unquote.
And I thank you so much for the support, KG. And I would have to say, yes, the Ukrainian northern border would most likely be vulnerable, but at the same time, the Russians are most likely going to be focused on trying to defend what they have, so a large amount of their forces won't be preparing for some kind of counteroffensive. They're most likely going to be moved down there to try and stop the Ukrainian counteroffensive from making the kind of momentum it would be. Because then the Russians will be on the defensive, so it is in the Ukrainians' ball court at that point to really take all of the, I guess you could say, offensive actions. The Russians would more so be reacting to stuff at that point. But that is possible. But the Polish getting involved, yeah, I don't know. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support, KG, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And the next one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a $20 super chat, and thank you very much for that support. And he said, good morning from Barkstone, Lavale, UK. Love watching the show over my morning coffee, and keep up the great work, and just wondering how the LSA flag is coming along, and slow Ukraine.
And let's see here. I think we found it, actually. I think this is Barkstone, Lavale, in the UK. Wow, this is a tiny
right out
village.
in the middle of the green.
Yeah, it's literally in the middle of, it's in the middle of Nottingham and Grantham. Wow. That isn't that full from other people, boss. But anyways.
I don't think we got to drive through this part of the of England when we went last time.
No, I don't think we did. But let's look at some of the pictures they have. And I like the church. I love churches like that. I think they look really nice. And, oh wow, this is a nice little place right here. We can see some frost probably, yeah, in January of 2019. And it seems as though the icon of this village is this church. And I gotta say, that is an impressive one. But let's see if we have a street view here. And we do. And let's look at the new causeway. Wow, this is actually kind of a modern town. Like, all of these look like post-war houses right here. Wow.
Post-war housing, you don't say.
That's it. Meanwhile, hair deficient and financially challenged would be going, wow, this looks dangerous. Meanwhile, he'll go to a literal slum in like Russia and be like, these people are very nice. It's very safe here. As he's getting robbed with a shiv. But anyways, I like this place. This is pretty nice. I mean, like, really nice. I mean, like,
it's interesting how it's literally out in the middle of nowhere, basically.
It's just in the middle of nowhere. Like, the next closest town to them is Grantham over here. And let's see what Grantham looks like. Because, you know, I guess this would be, like, their version of, like, Birmingham or Montgomery. You know, like, the big city nearby. Wow, this is actually really nice. Why didn't we go here? This is a really nice place, actually.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not bad, not bad, not bad. I like the little cobble streets. Like, they kept the cobble. Hopefully it's not like that rough, coarse cobble that, like, messes up your suspension. Maybe it's the smooth kind. Well,
do they have a Tesco's?
A Tesco's?
A Tesco's?
A Tesco's? I bet you they do. But we'll have to... Let's see, there's an Asda.
They have a little.
Yeah, they have a little. They have an Asda. Which is kind of like the high-end version. I guess you could say like an equivalent over there as like Asda is like a Kroger's or a Publix over here compared to Walmart. That's like what Asda is for the British. But I'm not seeing a Tesco's. The Range. Oh, it's a home goods store. I was like, they have a shooting gallery in the middle of the town. I was like, that is cool. Oh, here's a Tesco Express all the way out here. So this is like a mini Walmart for Britain. But let's take a look at this thing. Like, what the hell does a Tesco Express look like? I think we saw one. Oh, wow, that is tiny, man.
Oh, it's a convenience store.
That is like a Dollar General, pretty much.
Oh, it's secret, too.
Wow, look at that. Man,
that's
wild.
Fascinating.
That is wild, man. I'd never think we saw a Tesco Express that small when we were there.
And I saw Jethro Bradley say Asda is owned by Walmart. And I noticed it very quickly when we went into one, when we were over there. I was like, this is basically Walmart, just called Asda.
Yeah, and it is, but it's also nicer than Walmart. Because...
Oh, much nicer.
Yeah, because, let's see, and let me see who said that again. Who said that, Matthew, right there?
It was, let's see here, it was Jethro Bradley.
Now, if I remember correctly, Jethro Bradley is from the UK, and I have to be honest with y'all, you don't know what Walmart's really like unless you live in America and you've ever really been in one a couple of times. Because Walmart, Walmart used to be a good store to go to when I was a kid, but nowadays, like, everyone avoids Walmart and picks other stores to go to because it's just that bad. Like, the employees there are incredibly rude, nothing's ever really stocked properly, and also it's very dingy, dirty, and honestly, like, half of the folks that go in there, like should be like in a lunatic asylum at this point. So everyone ends up shopping at like Publix or something else because nobody wants to go to Walmart. Like, people go, like, I think like half of the other people that go into Walmart that aren't like the lunatics, like, everyone's in there just looking for that odd thing that another store does not have, and they are in there just to get that and then leave immediately. So like, Asda is nowhere close to being a Walmart. Like, it is totally different. Like, this doesn't look like good stocking, like, by a Publix standard or something, but compared to a Walmart standard, this is actually, like, top-notch stocking right here. Otherwise, it would be horrendous. But yeah, I mean, Asda is owned by Walmart, but it's more so like a Publix, like, in terms of quality than it is a Walmart. But wow, I mean, like, the stocking is kind of low in the middle of April of 2018. Like, there are just empty shelves over here.
Yeah, it's a little sparse. That's the little section where they have those little sandwiches and snacks and stuff that you can just walk in and grab.
Yeah, I think so. And also, Matthew, I see a lot of people saying, I will not shop at Walmart anymore. I'm glad that when I said that, like, people, like, recognize that. Like, Walmart has taken a sharp decline very quickly over the past few years, to the point it's practically impossible to shop in there normally. You know, unless if you want to, like, you know, be around very mean, like, employees or something similar. And then on top of that, what's so stupid about that is, like, Walmart employees are some of the best paid in, like, the retail industry. And they're so mean. Like, it's like the complete opposite of what you would think it would be like. You know, it's like, oh, they're well paid, well, they'd be happy. No, they're not. They are, like, some of the angriest grocery store employees you'll ever run up against. And it shows, like, I've got to be honest here. Regardless of what you think, I think that is good proof right there that it's more so store policy about how you treat customers that ends up altering the customer experience than the pay. Because the pay in Walmart is certainly not attracting incredibly nice employees. They're just all mean. But anyways, with that, very cool to see where you're from. And also, look, there's a castle out here, Belvoir Castle. Ooh, wow, that's really nice.
Oh, Belvoir.
Look, they have a golf cart down there, right there. It's like, look at that. Now, that is American, and this place is nice. Dang, why in the world did we never hear about this? I mean,
very interesting color scheme they got going.
And then there's the countryside. Britain has beautiful countryside everywhere. There's no such thing as ugly countryside in Britain. But this is a nice castle.
They could take the wallpaper down, though.
Yeah, the wall, that's probably like a Victorian era thing that they added, but this is really, really nice. Honestly, this whole castle looks to be Victorian era because it's not really like a castle, it's more like a palace that's built to look like a castle, which is a very Victorian era thing. But very interesting. Oh, look, man, they have the weapon wheel where they take all the swords and they make a wheel out of it.
Oh, that's clever.
That's really cool. I like that stuff. But man, really cool. I like this. Very, very neat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to keep this channel running, Butchie, and also letting us see where you're from out here in the beautiful old UK. Now, as far as the flag is going, the flag's kind of been put on hold because we can only do so many things in the background, sadly. And one thing that I'm trying to make sure reaches the priority list is that the drone is sent out tomorrow. That is the plan, and that's the goal, is to have a label printed out for that, have it in DHL by tomorrow, and making its way towards its first hands that it'll be transferred over to. So the flag has been put on hold for now, and also it's been put on hold because we could never get everyone happy on any of the flag designs we made so far. Some people said that some of the flag designs look communist, some of them said they looked fascist, some of them said they look stupid. We got everything that was negative comment on our flag. So we're putting that on hold right now, and we're probably going to be coming out with a completely different kind of flag design. Way different than anything else we've ever done so far. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Butchie. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, big shout out to BC Skyman, the channel legend, who puts in a $15 super chat without a comment, sadly, but thank you very much, BC, for the support. And also, at the same time, shout out to Certify, who put in a $10 donation as well. And BC and Certify, we do appreciate that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I do appreciate you both, BC and Cersify, for y'all support. Y'all didn't leave comments, but the support does mean a lot and helps us to keep this channel rolling. And without folks like you, BC Skyman and Cersify, who are both OGs of the LSA and have been helping this channel to keep on running, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And of course, from one enforcer to some old guards of the LSA, thank y'all so much for sticking around for so long. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to KG yet again, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you, KG, once more for the, I believe, third super chat of the night. And they said, orcs again launched missiles and killed kids. Let everyone be reminded that International Children's 6-1 Day was established as the International Day for Protection of Children by Moscow in 1949.
And I thank you so much for the support. And that is true, actually. That's a true statement. I don't really know much about it, but I do know the general details there are correct. But I do thank you for the support. And it is crazy to think that the people who once were out there making it look like they were caring for the kids are ending up being the ones that are killing the kids. So with that, thank you once again for support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. But real quick, though, Robert Kurdick said something. I have to check on this. He said, "That is so untrue. Walmart store employees are not paid well at all. A significant percentage of Walmart employees cannot afford to even shop at Walmart and need SNAP benefits to feed themselves." And I have to be honest with you. Let me look that up. Walmart wages.
Robert Kurdick said 15 an hour is considered high paying.
Oh
I would say for me,
God.
when I was working as a manager, I was making less than $15 an hour. So, I mean, 15 an hour for like an entry-level job, that is not bad at all, in my opinion.
So here in Birmingham, Alabama, and I must remind you all, the minimum wage here in the state of Alabama is the U.S. federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. A average Walmart employee makes $20.62 an hour. They make around $43,000 a year on average, which is the median income for the state. That
is not bad at all.
This is what is called in Alabama average living. And I would have to say that for Walmart employees to be paid on average $20.62 an hour, that is a lot. That is a load.
That is a ton.
And especially for Alabama, because keep in mind, because I know that some people are going to start talking about how the minimum wage needs to be like $15 an hour or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Alabama. Here in Alabama, $7.25 an hour is pretty normal to get as a job. I have worked at jobs in the real world, and I ended up working in a job where I got paid $8.44 an hour. I got to a job where I was paid $11.50 an hour, and then I got to a job where I was paid $12.50 an hour. All those jobs paid significantly less per hour than this.
I worked at a job where I got paid literally nothing when I interned.
Yeah, I mean, like we've worked many jobs, and I've never seen a job that pays this well. And for the employees to be paid so much more than any other grocery store worker here in this state, it is ridiculous that they act the way they do. Because they should be happy as hell working a job like that to be making $20.62 an hour when I was working at Publix and I was only getting paid $12.50 an hour. I mean, that's crazy. That's insane, really, for anyone to complain about that. And you got to remember, it is a grocery store job. You're not going to be getting paid a professional salary being a grocery store worker. And so to be paid the highest I've ever seen in this state, you should not be rude at all. That's just ridiculous. But
I mean, hell, what are welders getting paid these days? I mean, they have like a really, really high skill set to do that.
Let's see. How much do welders make? And of course that depends on the kind of welding they're doing, but they can make anywhere in between $16 to $33 an hour as a welder.
And the Walmart store associates are making $20 an hour.
Yeah, they're making as much as
That's
a welder.
Damn good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest with y'all. If you're making as much as a welder working in a grocery store, there is no right to complain. I'm just being honest with you. You got no right, and especially when you're getting paid more than the folks working at Publix. And Publix actually has good customer service, although I hated working there. They have great customer service. They have a great store. If you're getting paid more than those people and they're able to put on a smile and be nice, you should be able to put on a smile, be nice, and do your job. So with that, and someone said that's incorrect information. I wouldn't doubt it, because I remember I had friends whose parents worked at Walmarts when I was a kid, and I would ask them, well, how much did they end up making? And they were like, they make really good. Like my mom is a single mom, and she's supporting this entire family off of being a cashier at Walmart, working full time. So, that tells me in Alabama, they're getting paid pretty well, and they had only been working there for like 6 months. So anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, at least in my opinion, because I had to go back and make sure we got that information correct, because it may have been true that we were underrepresenting the number. Walmart wages, though.
Average Joe said, yeah, but Walmart's considered active combat pay.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you get duty pay for being in a Walmart. Like, people get stabbed in there. There's crap smeared on the walls in the bathroom. I mean, it is a combat zone, so that may be why they're getting paid so much. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Carson Larimore, who says, God forbid we in the USA ever had to defend trenches in our homeland. Drones would have no chance with all the duck hunters that we have.
And I thank you so much for the support, and that is entirely true. The amount of people who shoot clays or targets with shotguns is incredibly high here in America, and a lot of people get really proficient at it. And so, God help anyone who tries to use drones against the United States, because not only that, the United States military is one of the only militaries in the world that actually issues shotguns to some of its soldiers, like it's a standard issue weapon. So that is also very interesting to note as well. And if y'all are wondering what kind of shotgun it is, I believe it is the Mossberg 500, and I actually have one of them right here. So it's a good shotgun, I can tell you all that. It's not a bad one at all. And they are certainly not going to be having an easy time with drone warfare with folks using shotguns like that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And let's see. That was a very interesting point. Let's see. One second, I have to read that one, Matthew, because that one's just interesting. It's very different when it's real. Well, it's a very interesting point. I don't know if my friend who died, whose name was Bill, and he was a Vietnam veteran, I don't think he'd agree with you there, because that's usually where I get a lot of my stories from. But you keep it up. You are the best, Homer, and don't remember you because you're going home. And so with that, we're now moving on to the next one. ... If you didn't know, ... That was rude as hell. ... We'll see you around. ... Never. ... But anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, why does Enforcer Matt win every race? And the answer is, he always starts from the pole position. And that is correct. God. And these are getting more and more sly every single time. Clever.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for, of course, always putting in that pun. That has become famous at this point. And that was a genius one, actually. So I got to thank you so much once again for the support and for a great pun. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. But I also have to say this as well. Because, some people say, oh, the enforcers, at least this is what their haters say. They've never worked a real job in their lives. And unfortunately, I had to. So I know what it's like. Someone said in the live chat, at Publix, the employees might not have great pay, but fully invested, they can make 6 figures a year by putting capital in 401k and the stocks they get. The benefits are even better. Great company. I don't know if you work for Publix. I don't know that for sure. But I'll tell you this. I worked at Greenwise Market, which is the posher version of Publix. They actually, I believe,
the Gucci Publix.
Yeah, it's the Gucci Publix. They actually get paid a little bit more than the normal Publix employees do, and they also test out, as you know, because it sounds as though you know a good bit about Publix. They test out some of the products that are not really in the normal retail stores, because, of course, the whole vegan thing didn't really work out for them. So then they went into testing out experimental products and then introducing them at large into the rest of the Publix chain. And working there, I knew some people who had been working at Publix for well on a decade or 2 decades, some of them even nearly 3 decades. And I never heard any of them say that Publix's benefits ever actually coalesced themselves. I can't think of a single person in there, except for the management, that was probably lying about it, that said that they loved their job. Everyone in Publix hated their job. Of course, we treated the customers great, although most of the time the customers never treated us great. But everybody hated their job. And I remember one of them had actually ended up working there for 5 years. And when you work there for 5 years, you get a gift from the company. And it had been 8 months since the 5-year anniversary of them working there had passed, and they were supposed to get a watch on that day, and the watch arrived 8 months later and was scratched. It was scratched on the face of it before it even made it to them. And, you know, that was a real spit in the face considering it took that long and then it was damaged anyways, and they weren't going to give them another one because the manager said, sorry, that's the way it arrives, that's the way you get it. And I was like, wow, that is just a butthole thing to do. And then they also didn't even give good raises either from a lot of the people who've been working there for years. Like, they were like, I've been working here forever, and they only gave me like a 50 cents raise over 5 years' time. Which, according to Publix, when you start working there, you will pretty much, according to them in fairy tale land, get a raise every single time the assessment period comes around, which used to be every 6 months, and then it changed to annually while I was there, and then that pissed everyone off too. But to be honest with you, from my working experience there, it's a great company. Sure, I would say I would shop there over any other store here in the South because it is a great grocery store, and they do run it fairly well. But the benefits that they claim they have, they never really exist, except for on paper. At least from everyone who was working around me and what they said, and they had been working there for a long time. And then they were telling me, they were like, quit while you can, leave while you can, and that was also a big part of why I left, because I was hired as a cashier, and then they ended up making me a janitor, and I was pretty much a janitor for like 2 whole months, although I was hired on as a cashier. But anyways, with that, and also Skip Tracer 007 said, exactly, everyone wants executive wages with cashier experience. I mean, yeah, you know, that's a good thing. You have to be skilled to be paid. You know, it's like, obviously a Walmart employee is not going to be making as much as an attorney would be making or a surgeon would be making. You know, there's a point of replaceability, and that's where your pay ends up being decreased. And so I don't really get when folks are, you know, like scoffing at making $21 an hour at Walmart, considering that you could easily be replaced by someone else because it's a low-skilled job that doesn't really require a lot to get into. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from my experience of working at Publix, because I haven't been doing this my whole life, and I haven't been just sitting around doing nothing. You know, I ended up working a lot of jobs before I got into YouTube, and I was in the middle of the plague. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from none other than Psyops. And it's good to see you once again, Psyops, and thank you very much for the support. He says, can you say hello to my friends? I'm sure the streams would enjoy hearing the greeting too.
Don't say the names. Don't say the names. They're gotcha names. I saw them.
And I knew that. And sadly, we cannot say hello to your friends. Your friends are questionable, to say the least here, at least by their names. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Saj. I had to make sure, just in case Matthew didn't catch it, I had to make sure to catch him on that.
I literally read around it.
Oh man, I was sitting there, I was thinking, I don't know when the names are coming up, but I was like, we cannot read those off on air. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Psyops. And in stay of that, knowing the rule, we will make sure to get a live chat in its stay. But thank you so much once again for support and helping the show to keep on running. And with that, let's get a live chat.
And this one goes to, let's see here. Hold on just a second. Our live chat question goes to Peter G, who says, would any peace agreement be worth anything, seeing as Russia broke the treaty to not invade Ukraine from 1997?
Can you reread that one again? I'm so sorry.
Would any peace agreement be worth anything, seeing as Russia broke the treaty to not invade Ukraine from 1997?
That was not a treaty. That was actually a memorandum, which is not binding like a treaty. So I would say that a treaty would probably be enforced because considering that a treaty is held up by your word, and if you break your word a lot, no country in the world is going to trust doing business with you because you become a shady country, they probably would uphold the confines of a treaty if they did end up signing a peace agreement. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Borbula, who puts in a $5 donation and sadly does not leave a comment. But Borbula, thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you, Borbula, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a $5 donation and says, oh, I take a live chat question for Rodney. Oh.
And also, one second, man. I think I just... You see that, man? You see that one? You see that one in the live chat?
Let's see. Which one?
The one from Protect Oneself. It added someone in particular.
Maybe it's like a delay or something for me. I hadn't seen it yet.
Whoa. Make sure to follow through on that one, Jack. Make sure to follow through on that one. But, oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Last night I woke up in a heavy sweat, and my wife told me, oh man, I'm telling you, you look like some kind of a whale that just got out of the water. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does appease the Rodney fix. And with that, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Oh, okay. And I just saw it now. And apparently he was here a second ago, but then he left right as he got called out.
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, they hate us, but they watch us. It's always
yeah,
so
really.
ironic. And you know,
why would you watch us if you hate to listen to us?
And they religiously watch us because there's like live updates over there while we're running the stream on stuff we're saying. It's hilarious. I love it, really. I mean, it's great to know. And also, if you dislike the channel, why are you here? I mean, like, really, that's a good question. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Russ Rizzo, who puts in a $10 super chat. And it's a Rodney quote, by the way. And I'm going to send us over to the enforcer.
Oh,
actually, it's already in the chat.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I knew my morning wasn't going right. Oh, man. When I put on my shirt, the button fell off. And when I picked up my briefcase, the handle fell off. Oh, man, why, I tell you, I was afraid to go to the bathroom. Oh, man. Oh, it's bad. Real bad. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
But still, with that, thank you for the support, Russ Rizzo. And, of course, throwing in another Radney. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoyed that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and, of course, supporting us to help us to keep this thing rolling.
Yes. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Craig Platel, who says, if not already mentioned, the SU-30 video is from September 12, 2022. It's SU-30 number 10 on the org site.
Interesting. And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. And I'll be looking into that after the stream. And with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Samantha Owen, who puts in a $2 super chat. And she says, slap a Russian by hitting the like button.
And I'd agree. Slap a Russian by hitting the like button. Introducing the slap shop. Look, you hit the like button, boom, a couple of more Russians crying. You hit the like button again, boom, it unlikes it. Then a couple of Russians start laughing. You hit it again, boom, you get a salad made out of Russians. It's great, wonderful. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Make sure to get yourself a slap shop. Boom, look at that. You're gonna love my nuts. Everyone loves my nuts. Watch this, boom. You got yourself some mayonnaise. Boom! You hit it again. You got yourself a charge from a prostitute, and you go to jail after becoming a salesman. I'm telling you, it's rough. It's very rough out here in the salesman world. And look, ShamWow. Look at that. Wow, it soaks up all the water. Look at that. Wow, look. It's the same color as one of those Bert and Ernie characters. Wow, look at that. Amazing, right? Made in Germany. The Germans know how to make good stuff. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and with that being said, we are all out of super chat questions. So thank you all once again for helping to support the channel. And also, I have to admit, before we move on to our live chat questions, I have made a goof. Somehow, the Morse code, I did collect it out of the live chat, but it got deleted out of the spreadsheet. But it was solved tonight by Mark Hodges, CFA, JP's Gone Fishing, Cliff Simonson, Earl Bernew, and Paul Schultz. And Enforcer, what did the Morse code say?
How the hell could you forget that? I write up that Morse code and I completely forget what it is until I hear it.
Hey, forget about it. Forget about it.
You know what? I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna pull out my ShamWow and my slap chop. Look, boom. Look at that. Boom, boom. Made salad. Boom. Look at that. Made some deviled eggs. Look at that. Boom. But anyways, unfortunately, I hate to tell y'all, whenever I write up that Morse code message, I never really remember what the message is, but I remember it when I hear it again. So, unfortunately, I sadly can't really tell y'all what the Morse code message was.
You don't remember your own Morse? How can you say ding, 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 ding then?
Because when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one I put in. But I have so much going on. I can't really like sit there and try and recall like what that was. That was like 3 hours ago at this point when I made that Morse code message. So, you know, it's like lost to time pretty much. I'm sure one of them will put it in here though, again soon. But anyways, ding, 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 ding. That is the correct message. Y'all did get that right. I don't know what the message was, but I know y'all did get it right.
Ghost Squad says something about your refrigerator is running away.
What?
In the Morse.
Oh God. No, that's not it. that ain't it. No, that ain't it. Because hell, man, that scared me there. This was scary. But anyways, y'all did get it correct. I know y'all did. It's just that we don't have the message. So sorry about that. But thank you all for deciphering it. Again, we forgot on our end to make sure to keep the message. But with that, we are going to be moving on into the questions now, I suppose. But thank y'all once again for doing that.
All right, and moving into our live chat questions. Up first, we have one from Plexus Gaming, who says, Enforcer, not to take the wind out of your sails, but is it true that Ukraine launched an offensive to retake Mariupol?
No, it's not true yet. Some pro-Russian propaganda said they started the offensive at Kiev. It never happened. So they're not going for Mariupol, and we think they're going for Meltdown instead. So no wind taking out the sails yet. And they haven't started that yet either. So, you know, at the moment, I don't think that's the case, but it could be. Who knows? They are going in the southern direction, though. We do know that, so it could be Mariupol, could be Melitopol. Who really knows? But with it, hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you once again for always being here, Plexus. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, Jonathan Payne, I am not posting on Twitter while I'm sitting here right now, so let me go see exactly what has happened, if we have posted anything. Let's see here. I don't see anything posted on my end, so hopefully I'm not going nuts or anything.
Post on Twitter. Not. What's happening? We got 5 followers right there. What the hell is this, huh? I think he got. Right. I got to be honest with you, Mandy. I think he got a late notification or something like that. Because the last time you posted, it looks like it was 7 hours ago.
Yeah, it was a little while ago. So maybe it's nothing. But anyways, up next we have. Guess what I just came across? I just came across the Morse code. It's at the bottom of the spreadsheet. It was solved by Cliff Simonson, and it says tonight's Morse cipher is Russia be like at least we have this oil, and then it's blown up, and they crying a little.
Now that is the Morse code message.
Yes.
That's the sound of money, and y'all got that thing right. Y'all got that thing right, baby. Keep it going. And I gotta say, I'm completely blown away that we were able to find that Morse code message, and y'all did get it correct. That is the Morse code message for the day, and they are crying because they're like, all we have is this oil, and then it gets blown up, and then they cry a little about it. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. They got it, and let's go, baby! And so with that, we are on to the next one. And congratulations to Matthew for being able to find that in the spreadsheet. And now we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Psyops yet again. He says, merch idea number 69. HIMARS snow globe, but the snow is little foil missiles. Base is blue and yellow. Merch idea number 69.1. A Pootler stress ball, so everyone can strangle the bastard.
Man, I'm telling you, science is getting a little bit violent up in the air. Talking about strangling a bastard? Forget about it. Hey, listen, this thing's made in Germany. They make high-quality stress balls. Look at that. Squeezing my balls. You're going to love squeezing my balls. Anyways, I thank you for the support, Psyops, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running. And I would say those are some pretty good ideas. Maybe a little bit too difficult to manufacture, though, because Teespring is mostly like shirts and stuff, but that's still a really cool idea nonetheless. So with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for the support, Psyops, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running and coming up with some pretty interesting ideas. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Devin Harris, who puts in a 5 and says, has the Ukraine war made Putin look stronger or weaker than before?
Oh, it's made him certainly look weaker, because he doesn't even have an army to back up anything he says anymore. The Ukrainians have proven that even a smaller country militarily and economically can end up beating the Russians in the open field, because, you know, regardless of what anyone wants to say, oh, what's going on? They haven't beat him yet. Well, you know, considering it's supposed to be a 3-day-long war and it's 462 days long now, I call that winning. So it certainly made him look far weaker than he did beforehand, because beforehand, at least people believed he had a big military to back him up that could beat anyone in the world. Now we know it's a crappy military that can't beat anyone anywhere. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next we have a live chat question from Alex77, who says, is Ukraine trying to lower the frontline age?
I don't think so, from what I know, but I don't really know a lot about their conscription laws at the moment, but I have a feeling that that may not be true, because I haven't heard any information about that. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And we have a question from Andrew, who says, why don't they just fill in the trenches with soil instead of trying to clear the trenches?
Filling them with soil would be a little bit of a lengthy process because one would have to find the soil and then put it in there, and the Russians could just run out of the way of the soil being put in. So it's really best to just clear them and blow them away. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Robert Massey III, who says, Matt, do you think do you guys think attacking the Russians within their borders will galvanize the populace to want to join the fight?
Maybe, a little bit. But honestly, it's kind of having the opposite effect from what we can tell publicly. They're just kind of freaking out in there now, and they feel like they're defenseless. So that may have been the attempt, but it doesn't appear that that was the result. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, George Robertus said in the live chat, to answer one myself, apparently U.S. reenactors buy their kit from Walmart. Any period under $100. I'm telling you this, if a reenactor ever tells you he bought stuff from the value bin at Walmart, that man immediately must be shot. I'm telling you, it's by law. He must be put to death. Reenactors do not buy nothing from Walmart. I know that's probably a joke, but reenactors don't buy.
It's just a joke.
Yeah, it's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. Also, George Robertus thing is just a prank. Just making it clear. Everything's a prank. That's just a prank. But anyways, that is something that no reenactor does. There is no such thing as getting any reenacting clothing from the value bin. Because, I mean, like, everything's expensive. You can ask Matthew. Reenacting gear, at least like the uniform, just not even including the weapon, I would say most
leg.
Oh, that's why. Let's see here. Oh, we're back. All right, we're already back. Oh, wait, no, we're not.
Hey,
hey, we're back. No, we're not. We're back. No, we're not. But anyways, oh, he can't hear me. Oh, God. I think he can hear me now. Oh, I'm scared.
Hello?
Hello? Oh,
can you hear me?
Oh my God, I can.
Oh, hello.
It's a miracle. Oh, hello there. But yes, reenactors don't buy anything cheap. There's nothing cheap in the reenacting world. Like a normal uniform, like the First World War uniform I actually used for the profile picture here, it cost, for that uniform alone, about $1,000. Then the gun that went with the uniform also cost about $800, so the whole impression was like $1,800. Reenacting is not cheap, and that kind of does suck though, because it really is a high entry level to get into reenacting, is that you have to be able to shell out the dough for any reenacting period. That's why a lot of units end up sticking with just one period, because it's just too expensive to move to other ones. But somehow my reenacting unit is lucky enough that some of the members have massive amounts of uniforms from really every period, so that we end up doing everything. I think we've done everything from like the early American colonial era, like the 1730s, all the way up till the Second World War. I think that's the most modern they go. And we're even talking about going into Vietnam, which no one has any gear for, so that would be like pretty massive expenditures from everyone involved to try and get into Vietnam. But still, it is. Also, Stephen Fisher says, is it reenacting and LARPing? No, not LARPing. LARPing is for those people who do like cosplay stuff and they want to pretend like they're Wolf Jorgensen, the ultimate legend. Like reenacting stuff, you dress up in the old uniforms and you tell people how they work and how they feel and if they're comfortable or not and how people dealt with them and tell them of the personal experiences of soldiers. And then you also lay out all of the stuff they would have used and you tell them about it. So it's more so reenacting and trying to depict to the public what periods of history were like, either for civilians or soldiers, because there's a lot of people who do civilian reenacting and don't do the soldier side of things. And it's really just trying to like educate the public on what historical periods were like and how people lived. But that's what it is, because LARPing, yeah, I hate LARP. Honestly, like LARPing stuff doesn't even go with reenacting. Like reenactors hate LARPers because, you know, like I'll tell you this. Like, the people who show up, like, now there are LARPers who do reenacting, but they're, like, shunned and ostracized. Like, you know, the ones who show up, you know, the World War II reenactment, and they're part of 101st Airborne, and they have, like, medals on their fatigues, which would have never happened in real life, and they're also, like, 500 pounds. So instead of being, like, an airborne infantryman, they're, like, an airborne light tank. There are people like that out there, but those are generally ostracized by the reenacting community because they're out there trying to pretend like they're some kind of a hero. We're out there just trying to dress up and tell people what history was like back in the day and what people wore and what people did. We're not trying to be them. We're just trying to tell people what they were like and give them visual examples. So there's a big difference in between LARPing and reenacting. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to White Lightning 777, who says, have you heard of those killer whales breaking the rudders off of sailboats off the coast of Spain? Something fishy is going on.
I didn't hear about that, actually. So I would
know that the Russians are training the other whales to go out there and, swim around with a camera. So maybe they're training them to go and jack up the sailboats.
I guess. I mean, that'd be weird to jack up sailboats, but maybe they are. I don't really know. I'd have to declare ignorance on it for now, though, because, it's something I really don't know about. But with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed that fairly well.
And the next one goes to AD, who says, when this war ends, will the children who were kidnapped and taken to Russia from Ukraine be reunited with their families in some kind of agreement, and will Russia pay a price for it?
I would say they probably pay a price for it. They will eventually be reunited, but I think it will most likely be after the war. But that's just my assumption at the moment. So with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from, come on, spreadsheet. We have a question from Cool Shot, who says, we all know the truth, what's been happening. How do we get the Russian brainwashed population that only speaks Russian to realize the truth from its own government lies and propaganda?
The only way to make them realize that is that the government itself tells them that inside of Russia. Similar thing happened under Khrushchev in de-Stalinization. So I would say it would most likely have to be from the Russian government telling them that the previous government lied to them, and then reassure them that the current government won't lie to them when they probably will be lying to them. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Gabriel Mum, who says, how has the war affected the wildlife of Ukraine? I have read that some animals went extinct from some countries during World War II. Has a similar thing happened in Ukraine?
We've been hearing that endangered species within wildlife preserves and reservations have been killed by Russians and they're hunting them for sport, but we haven't heard of any species specifically going extinct yet. So I would have to say we don't know of any specific examples of them going extinct, but we do know that some endangered species are being deliberately hunted by the Russians in an attempt to make them extinct. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pack Rats, who says, when Ukraine gives back prisoners, are some sent back to the front, or do you think some might be executed for failing? They are having a hard time bolstering the front.
Now, I hate to say this, Matthew. I know you hate to hear this. What happened? Reread the line.
And Pack Rats said, when Ukraine gives back prisoners, are some sent back to the front, or do you think some might be executed for failing? They're having a hard time bolstering the front.
I would say they're most likely just sent back up to the front. I don't think the Russians are executing any of them, because that also would be bad optics for them to be visibly seen in a prisoner exchange and then executed afterwards, because that wouldn't be a good thing, and it wouldn't be something the Russians would be able to possibly hide either all too well. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemert, who says, question, what would we do if Canada or Mexico aggressively attacked the USA? We would fight like hell. The same for Ukraine, and Slav Ukraine.
I would say we certainly would fight like hell for either Mexico or Canada if they were invaded. Also because the United States claims largely dominion and control over the fate of the Americas from external power, so we would probably step in for that reason as well under the Monroe Doctrine. Although that has been loosely applied throughout history and has not always been applied consistently. And I'll tell you that right now, no qualms about it. That is just historic fact. It just gets thrown up. And Exmo just said Monroe, yo. But here's the thing, okay? The French intervened in Mexico twice, in the 1830s and right after the U.S. Civil War in the late 1860s. We never got involved both times, and we could have gotten involved, and we didn't. And that is the best example of the Monroe Doctrine being applied haphazardly. And, just whenever. Because then we applied the Monroe Doctrine in the Spanish-American War, as we're in regards to Cuba. And then we also applied it again during the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s. But we didn't apply it to Mexico. And we also didn't apply the Monroe Doctrine to the Fenian raids in northeastern the United States or New England. We didn't apply it there either. Which is very interesting to see that it is kind of like lackadaisically applied. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, but we would certainly step in and help them out. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Midwestern Viking, who says, whoever thunk that we'd ever see trench warfare again in the advanced 21st century battlefield, I wonder if blitzkrieg-style tactics will change dramatically now.
I think that there's room for blitzkrieg-style tactics, even in this war, but it matters about the element of surprise, and also the ability to execute a plan quickly. It really is about surprise and speed, because we can see that once two comparable forces go up against each other, no matter the technological advancement, they always end up going back to the trenches. We saw that in the Civil War first. We saw that in the Crimean War, kind of like as a protoplasmic form of what happened in the U.S. Civil War, a little bit during some of the sieges. World War I was the best example of it, and then we've even seen examples after that, like the Iran-Iraq War, and even in some small instances, and these are very rare instances, in the Korean War. So we have seen examples of that. It's not completely out of the question to see trench warfare in some form return, and also the Iran-Iraq War was probably a very good example of a massive 20th century war devolving into being a trench war. So it's not completely impossible to say that trench warfare will never cease to exist. But either, for blitzkrieg to return, a country has to have the advantage of surprise and speed to conduct a blitzkrieg and win a war quickly, or they have to be way above the abilities of the country that they're fighting to be able to conduct a blitzkrieg like that. So I think it's still possible. I don't think it's going to change a blitzkrieg. It's just that you have to make sure that the conditions of speed and surprise are ensured before that attack begins. Otherwise, it won't be a blitzkrieg. It'll be a bloody offensive that turns into a stalemate and then trench warfare. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Super Action General. And also, by the way, this is the second to last question I have in the spreadsheet. And Super Action General said, what's the difference between the Su-27, Su-30, and Su-35?
So, here are the differences. The Su-27 was the first of them all, and the Su-27 was starting to emphasize design ideas of super maneuverability. I'll show you all a Ukrainian Su-27 here, because the Ukrainians use these a good deal. They were starting to implement the ideas of super maneuverability into Soviet-era designs, and this is about the best example of that before the Soviet Union collapsed. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the Russian Federation started to try and improve the Su-27 design, and so then they brought forward the Su-30, which I'll show you right here, the Su-30 SM. And here's a pretty good picture of one. And what they did to this is that they improved the avionics. I believe that all of the Su-30s have a tandem cockpit with two pilots instead of just one, like the Su-27 has right here. And also, they added these canards to the front of the plane, which allows it a additional amount of maneuverability at much slower speeds. The Russians still actually believe that dogfighting is a integral part of modern air-to-air combat, which in reality it really isn't. So while maneuverability is important, extremely good low-speed maneuverability on what is really an air superiority fighter is kind of redundant, but they still put the canards on, and it does improve its lower speed maneuverability a fairly good deal over the Su-27. Then they came out with the Su-33. The Su-33 is the carrier version of the Su-30. That's really all it is. It is almost the exact same to the Su-30 in every single way. Once again, it has the canards. It has almost the same airframe shape and everything else. They did get rid of the tandem cockpit. It is once again a single pilot aircraft, but beyond that, it is almost the same as an Su-30, just designed to be launched from a carrier. So that's kind of the differences in between the Su-27, the Su-30, and the Su-33. And then they also have this one that isn't really talked about much, but it is out there, the Su-35, which literally looks just like an Su-27 in every single way. It doesn't even have canards. It just is a normal looking Su-27. But supposedly, it is far more advanced in its computers, avionics, and radar systems, although that's going to be a short-lived improvement because the Soviets and the Russians hardly had the ability to produce this stuff, and in the modern world, the Russians are entirely reliant on foreign imports of computer systems to make these kinds of airplanes. So, you know, those are pretty much the entire Su-27 series fleshed out into all of the different variants there are. Honestly, all of them are really just slightly modified Su-27s like the one you see here. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from how I understand the Su-27 series aircraft. And with that, we are now moving on, believe it or not, to our final question of the night. And so, Who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Lee G, who says, did you see the Zelenskyy drone that someone created out of the window clip of the Moscow drone?
I didn't see that, actually. So, sadly, on the last question of the night, I'd have to declare ignorance on that. But after the stream, I will be trying to look around for that and see if I can find it. And also, real quick, Mandy, did we recognize Dupper Bob?
Oh, good catch. And we have to recognize the super chat from Dupper Bob. There was a $2 donation, and of course, he said, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again, Dupper Bob, for the support, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running, always with the consistent support. And with that, it is now time for us to round out tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure running this stream tonight, and I'm highly honored to know that so many of y'all found this to be a quality source of news, even in the middle of our connection to YouTube and this live stream being attacked. Of course, if you did enjoy this stream, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we run this stream every single day of the week, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war. You can always count on us to be here, and you can also count on us to help out the folks we cover the news on, because every single Sunday, we run a Sunday night fundraiser that is made for a nonprofit that has been helping out in Ukraine, and it helps them to continue on the work they keep doing. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
And good night, Slava Ukraine, and Herum Slava.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends